Rochester, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester, an Odyssey sports station.
It's time to start the show and talk about the sports we saw. Inside jokes and takes from Danger and Battaglia. Bills and the Sabres and the Amherst. Who gave a microphone to these jerks? Gene's a big-timer, a social misfit. Clueless to the title of the biggest buskeg hits. Chuck Muncie's goons have the last say. So thanks for your time, Mr. Mayo. Danger likes his cold ones and he likes his bears. But this is Rochester, Q Francesa.
Oh, who cares?
He's critical of Sean, he's critical of Alan. Of course he married Sandy, cause she's Italian. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. With Danger and Battaglia.
Gino, I'm not one to normally play the lottery, but today might be the day I make an exception. We welcome you into the sports bar. It's Danger and Battaglia. We are set for another 3 hours of fantastic sports talk in the Flower City. The NFL is back. Week 3 gets underway tonight. Gino, I know your eyes are going to be averted from the NFL. You're paying close attention and following along your amazings against the Phillies.
Tonight. 4-game series opens up at Citi Field, and the Mets, with a 2-game lead in the wild card over Atlanta, probably is going to go down to a game and a half. Atlanta's up big right now in Cincinnati, but Danger, it's a different tone in the show here. You're not making fun of me. You're not making fun of the Mets. I think, you know what I did this past weekend? I'm going to do it again this weekend. I'm going to sit on my deck and enjoy a cold one and not be bothered by any damn mosquitoes because the Mets are still alive, buddy.
The mosquitoes are gone, but the Mets are still alive.
Yes.
I don't know. I still saw one or two. You know what it is? It's crane fly season now. Maybe when the crane flies go.
No. I'm going to stay down. I know they're playing the Phillies. I know it would be so tempting. But the Phillies and the Dodgers, they're the class of the National League. But last night I was busy. I was doing some work, and I'm like, okay, scoreless, going to watch. And then, a 9-run inning.
I mean, it's the Nats.
Yeah.
I mean, take what you can get. You don't have to apologize for a win. And the Phillies drop one in walk-off fashion to the Brewers last night. So, yeah, you're going in with the head of steam, Gino. Going into the weekend with the head of steam.
We get Luis Severino on tonight. It's on the network. Network TV picking up the Mets tonight. I love this.
So we'll divide and conquer is what you're saying. You'll pay attention to the NL pennant race. You'll watch your Mets and Phillies. I'll focus in on the NFL. I'll watch the Patriots. I'll scout the Patriots and Jets.
My hunch is Patriots-Jets after watching the Jets this past Sunday, in Tennessee, that wasn't good. In the Monday night game in San Francisco, that wasn't good. This is a team that has had a short week now, 2 consecutive weeks with old Aaron Rodgers. So I hope your expectations tonight, if you're thinking, I'm going to watch some quality football. No, the Patriots are going to ugly this up.
I'm taking the under. I am taking the under.
Yeah.
That is a certainty. We're gonna line up a couple of great guests for you this afternoon here and talk more Bills and Jags as we get ready for Monday Night Football as the Bills open up their Week 3 schedule late in the Week 3 schedule here on Monday night. The early kickoff at 7:30 with the Jags coming in. Mia O'Brien from 1010XL in Jacksonville will be stopping by the sports bar here at 4:25.
It's my understanding she's actually at Ithaca going back for some event. She's an Ithaca grad, so why not make it a long week? She is the Jaguar beat reporter up here a little earlier. And look, we got a lot of questions, right? Like the owner putting pressure on the head coach. What about Trevor Lawrence? Can we say he's regressing a little bit? Has it just been a bad string here? How did this team not get to the playoffs in the first place last year? And now that they come in at 0-2, up until this point, what has been the vibe down in Jacksonville? Because I would imagine, if the Bills started out 0-2, everybody would be freaking out. So we'll talk to Mia O'Brien, 1010XL in Jacksonville, coming up in the 4 o'clock hour.
The latest from Orchard Park coming up later this hour. In about 20 minutes, we'll check in with Dan Fates, BuffaloPlus.com. and 13 Wham Sports.
So Dan was out there yesterday, and we will talk to him about some of these Bills issues. Namely, all right, the Jaguars do have Travis Etienne. The Bills are playing not one but two backup linebackers. Now, Dorian Williams had some really nice plays, and we're starting to kind of, we don't think of him as a backup. In reality, that's a big step down. But now you get Balin Spector. How will Balin Spector work in a full week? And did we underestimate the secondary as a whole here? Was that just Tua being bad, or do the Bills actually have something here between Cam Lewis, Jamarcus Ingram, Damar Hamlin? We'll talk to Dan Fates, 13 Wham Buffalo Plus, coming up at the bottom of the hour.
You can pull up a stool and join us at 866-4326. We're on Elon's Twitter, X, at The Fan Rochester. Our video stream is up. You can watch the Sports Bar, The Fan Rochester, our YouTube channel. Like and subscribe while you're there. Streaming on Twitch as well, twitch.tv/The Fan Rochester. We sound our best in the free-to-download Odyssey app. And you can get us on your smart device when you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan. I mentioned how last weekend I had the chance, the pleasure of playing Midvale Country Club for the first time in my life. Got invited there. Our friends from Open Door Mission were very gracious and gave me a round. And my daughter golfs. She golfs a Mercy, and she's out there all the time. And I'm like, let me get out for a round with my daughter. My wife and my older daughter have been in London. They're coming home tonight. So we've had this stretch of time where it's just me and my little one. And I'm like, let's do some bonding. Let's go golfing together. So we went golfing. We went to Midvale on Saturday. Beautiful day, if you remember last Saturday. And it was great. It was an unbelievable time, except when we got to the turn at we finished 9, and she looks down and she's like, "Oh, Dad." I'm like, "What? What happened?" "I lost my anklet." I know. My daughter's wearing jewelry on the golf course. Of course she's wearing jewelry on the golf course because she's Italian. I'm like,
she lost it. This is not in anywhere in the vicinity. She just
This is her Nona giving her jewelry from Italy that she loves wearing, and she wore it around her ankle. It's an anklet, and she's like, I don't know where it fell off. I think I felt it around hole 7, so maybe it's in the last 3 holes. I'm like, look, it's probably gone.
Right, and you can't. I would imagine. All right, timeout. Let's go back and look.
No, it was busy. There were people in front of us, people behind us. I'm like, we're not turning around and going back. If we do that, we're calling it a day. And I don't want to call it a day. We've got this beautiful golf course in front of us. Let's finish out the round, and we'll go to the golf clubhouse afterwards, and we'll tell them, hey, just in case, take our number down, and let's see what happens. And I was at lunch today with a colleague, and I get the text from my daughter, Dad, look at this voicemail. And it was the fine folks at Midvale Country Club saying, a member found it last night. We have it. Come by and pick it up anytime. I'm like, what are the odds that this little
showing up for everybody on the
little thing, this piece of jewelry that was around her ankle, that somebody found it somewhere, between like hole 7 and 9 at Midvale.
Listen,
so a big thank you to the honest person who saw it, didn't swipe it for themselves.
Right. I think that would be easy to spot on a golf course, whether you're a grounds crew or everything, but the idea that somebody's like, oh, somebody may be missing this. Let me get this to the appropriate person. That's it. Can I ask the obvious question? Like, is that gold, or is it? If it's from Italy, I'm imagining that's got a little value to it.
Of course, it's gold.
I know.
'Cause it's Italian.
Okay, we cleared that up. There's some value to it.
Because it's Italian. What, you think she's going to give her just some fool's gold? White gold? No, gold. It's Italian.
I'm going to take this a complete sidebar here. We'll get back to your story, but I really feel sorry for the guys. Not one, but two. But for the guys who actually have to deal with you someday when your daughters date, when your daughters bring somebody home, when that guy will look you in the eye and say, I would like your daughter's hand in marriage. I'm scared for them, man. The way like,
why? Yeah, I'm not intimidating. You think I'm intimidating?
You're not intimidating, but you would get your point across, I think.
Well, they're going to know where they stand with me. I think that's one thing that I'll say. I mean, like, you'll always know where you stand with me. I won't hide my feelings. I will tell you how I feel about you or about anybody. I mean, like, that. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but if he comes around and starts calling me bro, we're going to have a problem.
Yeah.
If the guy comes around and they're introducing me. Hey, bro, where's the? No, not in my house. I'm not bro. I'm not dude. You'll call me by my name, and that will be that.
That will be that.
That I'll put my foot down, but I don't know, man. It hasn't happened yet. Maybe it hasn't happened yet because my daughters have the same fear that you have. But I'm telling you, given this again, like sometimes I just feel like people, karma, whatever you want to believe in. I was convinced. I'm like, that's a needle in a haystack. There's no way.
To the fine golfer, the person who turned that into the pro shop, like I said, like most people be. Maybe not. That's not true. Like I would think that a lot of us would actually turn it in, if they saw it on the ground.
Right. I imagine if I'm imagining a member picking it up, or girl, either or, picking it up and saying, I really don't have a use for this, or that would be their first thought, like, oh, somebody must have lost this. I don't have a use for it. I don't really care what its value is. Mm-hmm. Clearly, somebody lost this. Let me return it, and that's what happened. And my daughter is over the moon because she got her anklet back, her precious Nona anklet that Nona got her from Italy.
Okay, so Lexi, this isn't Dad saying this. This is Uncle Gene saying this. Ready? What's the lesson to be learned here? No jewelry on the golf course.
I said the same thing too.
Okay.
I was like, if it means that much to you, maybe don't wear it when you're playing. Your sport. Maybe keep it on the shelf. Maybe put it in the jewelry rack or whatever, the jewelry cabinet. But don't. If it means something to you and you could possibly lose it, maybe leave it at home. What do you think? It's the golf course. It's not a fashion show. I think that lesson has been learned. But she's over the moon. And again, thank you to the folks at Midvale, not just for hosting us on Saturday, but also for retrieving an item that I thought was long gone. I really did. So maybe the lottery tonight. We'll see. Maybe the lottery tonight. At minimum, Thursday night football and Mets and Phillies.
Mets and Phillies, yeah. And it's, boy, another spectacular sports weekend where you get Syracuse on a Friday night, or you can go out and support your local high school Section 5 team. You've got a great college football Saturday, which we previewed a little bit with BJ Glasser yesterday. And then a Sunday danger just like last week where, the Bills, they're not going to muck up your schedule. You're not going to have any anxiety. You pick and choose what you want, whether that's the Cowboys, Ravens. Maybe you're going out to an establishment to watch everything. And the weather looks great this weekend.
Can I be an honorary member of Grills Mafia for the weekend? Because you everything that you're laying out, it just speaks to me. I'm like, I'm getting a brisket. I'm going to throw the brisket. I'm going to smoke a brisket. And then on top of that, next week, we're doing our annual company chili cook-off, whatever we do.
Is that next week?
I think it's next week.
Okay.
And I'm gonna put together a little Texas chili with my smoked brisket in, and kind of blow everybody away. Hopefully blow everybody away with some leftover chili that I can make here over the weekend. So I'm excited for the weekend, man.
Be like the guy that we used to work with that bought the Hormel and put it in just as a joke, just to see like if he would get the votes.
Yeah, right. That's I like that move. I mean, show you care without showing you care. Like, I care, but I really don't care.
I really don't care.
Yeah, I care, but not enough to give you any effort. I'll show up and I'll do what you're asking me to do, but I'm not going to do it with any extraneous effort. It's going to be absolutely minimal. And I'm just going to dump some Hormel in there. Oh, God. Hormel. The last time I think I cracked open a can of Hormel was to mix it with the Velveeta and make a little chili con queso, right? I mean, like, that's the dip that you would make, right?
That's a shortcut, yeah.
It's an absolute shortcut. You get a Rotel, a Hormel, and a Velveeta. You let it go in the slow cooker, and you clog your arteries. That's an easy way to clog your arteries on a Sunday.
So, back to a great sports weekend. NFL, everything. I saw this today. Maybe you saw it too across your feed. Danger, did you see this take from Mel Kiper Jr.? Mel Kiper Jr., who I never considered him a takesman. All these years, he has opinions on guys who come into the draft, but when it comes to divisive takes, I don't think Mel Kiper is the guy that's going to provide you one. But this, to me, is a doozy. And he, to kind of shorten this up, believes that the NFL should do away with too high safeties. Should be outlawed. Like, this is not good for the game. For all those years when Josh Allen was starting out, what was always the common thing? Oh, how do you beat Josh Allen? You go too high safeties. He's not patient enough to take what's underneath and whatever, blah, 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 blah. But you look 2 weeks into the NFL, and I know what Mel is saying here. Okay, the explosive plays in the league, the deep shots, the things that make for great highlights. We've had less of them. Like, you just look at your fantasy team. Sure, you'll get the occasional 97-yard touchdown from the Justin Jefferson and the Vikings, but to me, this is just the pendulum going the other way, Danger. This is, for so many years, we grew up and you're running a 3-4 or 4-3 or whatever. How many teams really run a 3-4 or 4-3? Sure, you bring down the nickel corner and they line up as a linebacker, but is that really a linebacker, Taron Johnson? Just NFL teams, I think, are just kind of recognizing, hey, if defenses are going to line up small, all right, well, then we're going to go bigger and run the football. And to be honest, I don't think it's a bad thing. I watched the Bills. You watched the Bills last Thursday night. Is anybody complaining the style in which the Bills won the game, that Josh Allen wasn't taking deep shots? No. You were enjoying watching James Cook rip one off. So, to me, if your team wins and it doesn't matter the style, but on the other hand, I'm just wondering if Mel is just laying the groundwork here for something that might be coming down the road.
That's interesting. Outlawing a specific formation. Has it ever been done in the NFL? Like the Wildcat, I remember when the Wildcat was a thing that was never outlawed. It was just kind of resuscitated. Like Miami just brought it back, right?
Miami brought it back. New England wasn't prepared. Teams weren't prepared. But then you just do the minimal amount of film study. And even to the point now where does it even work in college football? No. So right. So
like I think there was talk about outlawing the tush push there for a little bit.
That
right?
I could understand from a player safety standpoint. We could listen. I would listen to that argument if you're Jason Kelce repeatedly at the bottom of the pile. Is that good for you long term? But we've never had, like in the NBA, you had, for many years, illegal defense. I'm like, oh come on, you can't play a zone in the NBA. Well, they got rid of that. But now in baseball, hey, the shift. The shift. Get rid of the shift. And I think a lot of baseball fans appreciate that. Who wants to see the shift? If you can't hit to the opposite field, well, that's on you. Okay? So learn how to hit on the opposite field. And maybe. So I do appreciate the fact that, that Mel Kiper brought this up. I think, Danger, what eventually may get people to talk about this is, hey, if TV ratings are down and scoring is down and networks are saying, hey, this is because ratings are down and scoring's down, how do we juice up scoring? And this lands on the competition committee's plate at some point that you can only play safeties here or there. The other suggestion I've seen in response to this is, all right, well, then just go with the college hash marks. I don't see that happening either.
Well, I know that Sean McDermott now on the competition committee would probably fight back against getting rid of the formation that his defense is predicated on, right? Like he's always had strong defensive back play, and his defensive backfield is the key. Like it almost goes from what those guys are seeing back there and keeping everything in front of them. The TV ratings aren't going to go down. I mean, it's the NFL, so that probably won't be a concern. I think it goes to what we were talking about yesterday with Sal Capaccio, the cycles in the NFL, how cyclical the NFL is. And let's face it, it's not just the NFL, it's life. Life is cyclical. The pendulum swings one way, and then it goes too far, and then you have to try and recenter it again, and then it goes too far in the other direction, and then you hope that it gets recentered again. And I think that's where we are in the NFL right now, where defenses have gotten more athletic, smaller, faster, and offenses have figured out that you can exploit that by just mauling people and running it down their throats. They can't make the tackles, and they can't be bothered with a 350-pound lineman blocking them to the moon. They're out of the play, and you've got an easy 6 yards per carry if you're in the NFL. So eventually, maybe what happens is if Mel Kiper's a part of this, what happens is you start to see a little bit more size come back into the second and third level of an NFL defense, which will make it harder for NFL teams to run the football. And then once again, and I also think that there is a way to beat those two high safeties. We don't like talking about it because this way doesn't exist with our offense here in Buffalo. But if you have a Xavier Worthy or a Tyreek Hill, you could just run through everything. Just be faster than everybody and have a good line pass block and give you the time that you need to chuck it downfield. You'll probably not hit on everything, but you will hit on occasion for those big plays. And we saw it in week 1 for Kansas City, and certainly the Vikings I mean, Justin Jefferson made a lot of, nice run, had a nice run after the catch for that one. But there's, it's a cycle. And I think eventually, maybe not this year, but eventually it comes back towards the center.
Yeah, it's look, the Bills are in a good spot. Okay, I think this offense, although they don't have like the true game-breaking number one wide receiver,
Well, they have some speed with Samuel. Samuel could be that guy, I suppose.
yeah, and right, and they certainly have a running game. I'm curious, like, at what point do we get to see the Ray Davis game at some point?
Yeah.
Like Davis as the complement to James Cook. James Cook, 3 touchdowns. When I was out with at the Bill Gray's Tap Room in Shiloh with Duffy, I was like, who was the last guy to have 4 touchdowns? I thought about that with the Buffalo Bills. You got to go back to McGahee.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so like the idea of 4 touchdowns on the ground. So that's a concern for me. Like if you're going to say how does Jacksonville win this game on Monday night, I would say it's Travis Etienne.
It's physical.
It's physical.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way the Jaguars seem to beat the Bills. They did it in London. To a certain degree, they did it in the 9-6 game, although I think that was more the Bills not showing up, not caring about it.
Yeah, that would be a concern. But the Bills have shown, and defensively, it does start up front with those with Jones, with Ed Oliver. If those guys are getting that push and they're making it tough and they're putting that pressure on the quarterback from the middle of that defense, I mean, you're rushing 4.
Mm-hmm.
You're protected. Your guys are athletic enough, and I think in the case of, Williams is a little undersized. I think Spector's got good size to him. Spector is kind of like how I view a linebacker, like a prototypical linebacker.
Yeah.
I think of a guy like Balin Spector, size, speed, athleticism. That's kind of how I always have envisioned the typical linebacker in the NFL to look and play. Let's get Dan Fate's take on the Buffalo Bills here as we head into Week 3 with Monday Night Football on the horizon. The Jacksonville Jaguars coming to Orchard Park. We'll get Dan's take on what he's seen practice this week, and we'll talk a little bit about these injuries and the players on the defensive side of the ball that have stepped up with these injuries that have occurred. Dan Fates stopping by the Sports Bar next on The Fan.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan Rochester are presented by T-Mobile. Switch to T-Mobile and you can get tons of benefits and still save on every plan versus AT&T and Verizon. Use their savings calculator to find out how at T-Mobile.com/switch. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Bills back on the practice field once again today, awaiting the official injury report. Josh Allen, he knows the history of the Bills against Jacksonville.
The last couple times we've played them, they've gotten the best of us. So taking that into account, obviously a new D coordinator there, but they're flying around. They're playing real solid together defense. Got guys with a lot of motor, and they don't let up. So we're going to have our hands full.
Week 3 of the NFL season begins tonight. It's the Jets hosting the Patriots. We'll talk some football coming up next. 13 Wham and Buffalo Plus's Dan Fates joining us in the sports bar. On the Major League scoreboard, the Orioles in need of a win. They are leading the Giants 3-2 in the 8th. Braves are up big on the Reds 11-3 in the 7th. Tied at 2 in the 7th. The Twins and the Guardians. The Blue Jays leading the Rangers 2-0. And they're in the 3rd. The Yankees in Seattle coming up at 4 o'clock. The Red Wings once again home against Iowa. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, the Fan Rochester.
Top Shelf Sports Talk. You're hanging out in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
We're going to talk Bills, Jags with 13 Wham Sports, BuffaloPlus.com's Dan Fates, but I can't let this slide. This is just... Let's just get this out of the way up front. I mean, Dan Fates is good with his time. He's a busy man. He's about to be a girl dad times 3. You call him up and you, misfit over there,
misfit. I just condescendingly,
how is my Braves fan friend doing? Is my Braves fan friend doing okay today? What this guy is giving us our time, and you're being condescending to him like he's a child because he's a fan of the Gwinnett Stripers here late in the season. Dan, I want to apologize on behalf of this misfit across from me, and thank you for your time. And I'm looking forward to getting your insight on this great Monday night matchup between the Bills and the Jags.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Danger. I just didn't expect anything less, from a Mets fan. That's all. That's just kind of what I was expecting. I'm a broken man. I'm sure Gene has been reveling in my tweets. I am no longer watching this team for the rest of the season, the Braves, that is. I can no longer support and put myself through the mental anguish, and mental health is very important nowadays. I can't watch teams hit leadoff doubles, leadoff triples, and not score runs. So I feel better. I checked the scores at the end of the night, and congrats to the Mets on making the playoffs.
Wow. Thank you, Dan. Hey, we still got it'll be a game and a half, so I feel like I'm walking into a trap here. It's a bizarre world.
Nope. It's all you, man.
All right.
Congrats.
Dan,
our whole team being decimated, but you got there.
Dan, yesterday, Sean McDermott, I know he can't really say anything but what he said, but man, we were laughing. We thought this was one of the greatest lies ever told by a head coach, the idea that they still have the utmost confidence in Tyler Bass. You have to say that. You can't not say that. But man, seeing how that ball came off his foot last Thursday night in Miami, probably good that they're being proactive, working out some kickers this week, just in case Tyler Bass isn't able to do what he's being asked to do.
Yeah, I think this is the first time that there's really been pressure. And I know there's always pressure from fans and outside and social media and all those things. But from the start, when the pressure started or the heat felt like it was turned up on Bass and his production and play, Bean and McDermott were always like, hey, I know he missed the kick, but like he's a hard worker guy. Like everything's going to be fine. He works at his craft. We have all the faith in him. And there really was never a flinch. Like, anything like that. But the fact that they worked out 2 kickers earlier this week was the first real sign of, okay, we got problems and that we need to have our ducks in a row in case things get worse. And then Sean is in mid-season form this week with his cliches. He is locked and loaded. He has full confidence in Tyler Bass. And he also has a ton of respect for a very good Jacksonville Jaguars team.
Dan Fates, 13 win Buffalo Plus. Dan, if I have one fear about this Monday night, and yes, the guys stepping in have been great, right? Who thought Cam Lewis could play at this level? Jamarcus Ingram, now Balin Spector, and if you take away that first drive, he was great too. But it's a cumulative effect here. I mean, these guys, like, at what point do we begin to see, all right, these guys were a backup for some reason?
I don't know. That's a really good question. DeMar Hamlin, Balin Spector, Terrell Bernard, Dorian Williams, Cam Lewis, like, the list goes on. Chris Long was talking about it on his Greenlight podcast earlier this week. He kind of recapped week 2. Is there a better coach than Sean McDermott at getting the most out of the bottom and backups of his roster? I mean, look around the NFL. Like, teams fall off a cliff sometimes when they lose one player. The Bills are without their best 3 players on defense. And Sean McDermott still has that defense instilling fear. They have this – we talked to Rasul Douglas about it yesterday, guys. Kind of interesting how Vaughn says it's a simple defense, but it's also complex. And you can tell that the Bills, especially their back half, are confusing quarterbacks and doing a really good job of disguising things. But Rasul says, like, the way that we keep it simple is so that, like, we can play fast. And I know that's another cliche, but, like, when you're not thinking about, like, doing 9 different things, you just go out there and play. It's the same when a wide receiver feels more comfortable running routes. They can run them crisper and better because they're on the same page with the quarterback and all those things. So they kept Balin Spector around for a few years when he's been battling some soft tissue injuries. And you kind of wonder, like, oh, they'll move on from Balin Spector. And here's their time of actually doing it. And this is why they kept him around. You hope that Terrell Bernard's back sooner rather than later. That seems to be the good news of the strain of the bicep. But, guys, they just continue to plug guys in, fill holes. They say the next man up mentality, and they go out there and still play at a very high level. And I know people maybe don't want to hear it, but it's a lot because of Sean McDermott and Bobby Babbitt.
Yeah, I also think that it's just and we talked about this with Sal Capaccio yesterday, that there's a continuity with the Buffalo Bills, and they have an advantage over teams that bring in personnel but then change defensive coordinators. And the Jags are one of those teams dealing with a new defensive coordinator this year. How much are they changing their scheme, and how much is that new scheme equal what they already have as far as personnel on the defensive or offensive side of the ball? And the Bills, let's face it, aren't going to change their defensive philosophy. Right. It's Sean McDermott's defense. He knows the guys he wants, and he's got guys now that have been here for 3, 4 or more years that understand exactly where they need to be and how they need to play.
Yeah, and going off that, too, talking to one of the players yesterday and said, like, these coaches spend time and watch film one-on-one with backups, and that's very rare. Like, to have the time and not the just in case, but guys like Cam Lewis, guys like DeMar Hamlin, guys like Dorian Williams. Like, normally it's the starters go through the film room, they go through all that, they break, it's over. But this coaching staff takes extra time and watches film exclusively and one-on-one with backups. So Cam Lewis has gotten the starter treatment in the film room. Guys like Balin Spector, guys like Terrell Bernard, like those guys that weren't necessarily starters at one point got the treatment of starters for when they got their call. And, like, that shows you the importance that Sean McDermott puts on that of, like, preparing. And it is interesting to me to be like, when Balin Spector came in the huddle, and I'm like, man, this is bad. I saw Terrell Bernard walk off the field. He walked right past me, muttered some things. I was like, this doesn't seem good. And Balin Spector comes in the huddle, and the first play gets a tackle. And, like, I'm sure Balin Spector, and they can all say it, like, the backup quarterback, you're only one play away. But to really be able to do that is a whole nother level of being prepared. Because it's easy to say, oh, yeah, you're always preparing like you're going to start. But you're expecting Terrell Bernard to play 100% of the defensive snaps. And when you get in there, to then make the first play, I think shows a lot about the preparation and the coaching staff puts in with these guys, and then them executing. It's not all them. They deserve a lot of the credit, the coaching staff, and the players executing when their opportunity is called.
Dan Fates, 13 Wham, Buffalo Plus, is our guest. The history between these two teams, Bills and Jacksonville, Dan's not great. I mean,
not great, Bob.
No, like, right. You get the game in London. You got the Urban Meyer game. If you want to go back to the 10-3 scintillating playoff loss, why is that?
Man, you are always flying high. You're a Mets fan. You're feeling good. You got great questions. Like, you are just killing it, Gene. Like, that's what it is. because Mike and I, we joke around a lot on Buffalo Plus, and some people say there's too many inside jokes that you guys have. One of the ongoing running jokes that Mike and I have constantly had is that we still think the Bills are going to come back and win that game against Urban Meyer down in Jacksonville. like we are convinced that they're going to come back and win that game. I think it's a little bit of taking teams lightly, and the Bills have kind of a trend of that case. We go back to last year. They lost 6 games in the regular season, guys. 5 of those were to teams that missed the playoffs and were struggling when they faced the Bills.
Wow.
Go back to Denver beating the Bills on that weird Monday night game. They've lost to the Patriots. They've lost to the Jets a couple times. Like, they've lost 2 bad teams. Then they go and they get up for the big games against the Chiefs and all those things. But this is, Sean McDermott was asked about that, and that was where he pulled out all the cliches of we don't take anybody lightly, we don't think this is a trend, and all those things. But it's hard not to see the little bit of the trend of 5 out of your 6 losses were to bad teams last year. Now, I give credit to Von Miller, who, I don't know if you guys know this, he's in his 14th year in the league because he never brings that up. But he's in his 14th year, and I thought one of the best things I heard yesterday was him going, it's 2 weeks, right? The Bills were cast off this offseason as the championship window is closed. They're going to stink. They're going to miss the playoffs. They've won 2 games in convincing fashion for the most part. I know the Arizona game, they had to hang on a little bit, but they pretty much took control of that game in the second half. The last 6 quarters, they have been dominant in every facet of the game. And now all of a sudden they're like, those are a top 5 team. And Vaughn talked about it's how the biggest test they have right now is handling this success. You're only as good as your last game and things like that. But this was a team that kind of liked being the underdog, I think, the first 2 weeks. And no, we don't really know what the Bills are. Now they're going to face a Jacksonville team that their quarterback said it himself. They suck right now. And that's a dangerous team that comes in 0-2, trendy spot for underdogs, a desperate team coming to Buffalo. And it's how do the Bills handle that success? I think the good thing is that they've had a lot of time off. I think that's a lot of time for the Bills and the coaching staff to find negative things that they didn't do well in Miami and hammer those points home rather than give them their flowers and say, hey, we're a great 2-0 team. Don't worry about it. But they have had a history of kind of taking these bad teams a little lightly the last 2 years.
Yeah, and then double that with their opponent the following week. I mean, it could be a look-ahead spot too, Uncle Dan, when you consider that Baltimore is on the horizon as well once they get through with Jacksonville here. So let me ask you a question. Is 5.5 enough points for Jacksonville to cover?
Yeah. I originally was looking at this game and I thought 27-10 Bills. I thought easy, this Jacksonville team, I think they've got a lot of issues in their secondary. They have a good front four, good pass rush, but I think their secondary is weak. We saw Tua and them expose that in week 1. And then you really can't take any semblance of what the passing game is for the Cleveland Browns and Deshaun Watson. So I think there will be opportunities there. But this is one of those spots where now the Bills have had a lot. Now you're getting more film on teams, right? We always thought week 1, well, we can look back to last year, but what do they really have and how are they going to change during the offseason and coordinators? And then you have Trevor Lawrence. Like, we talked to the Jags broadcast, the play-by-play guy, and he's like, that's not like Trevor Lawrence to come out there and say, like, we suck and that I need to play better, the running backs need to play better, the wide receivers need to – like, he went down the list. Like, they're going to be a desperate team coming in on Monday night with something to prove. So it's a little scary for me. I think this game goes 24-20 is kind of what I'm predicting on the Buffalo Plus show today. 5.5 seems like a lot. Josh hasn't been a great guy to cover when he's had 5 or more points favorite. Just some of the trends, he's like 8-17-1. I was just looking at today. So, look, now when the Bills win, they do have that trend of winning a lot of their games by 6+ points. If you're a fan of the Bills and that's something you want, that's fine. But an 0-2 team facing a 2-0 team, underdogs have been trendy. I think this is going to be a closer game than what we think because that's kind of the history of what this Bills team has been like the last few years.
Dan Fates, 13 Wham, Buffalo Plus, our guest. Dan, I mean, another thing, I'm thinking of storylines maybe after this game. Might we be saying nice things about Brandon Beane? Because I go back to the Miami game, and, hey, here's Jordan Poyer, and ooh, that did not look good. And that wasn't – now it's not like Gabe Davis we're pining over, but maybe Mitch Morse in a way when they let him go. I said to myself, like, boy, of all the guys, that's the one that hurts. But then – But then you see what the offensive line did against Miami. Your thoughts on, what these veterans, it's been kind of a tour because then a couple weeks after that, we're going to see Diggs down in Houston.
Yeah. They talked about how weird it was to see Jordan Poyer last week. I believe Poyer just kind of ran right off the field after the game, but that James Cook touchdown was not a good look for Jordan Poyer. Mike and I joked on our post-game recap down in Miami that you thought James Cook looked really fast, and then you were like, Jordan Poyer maybe just looked a little slow. And we'll have to see what Gabe is. He leads the team in targets for Jacksonville. He's got 10 targets. He has 6 catches. That's kind of his MO. He catches about half the passes that are thrown in his direction. Trevor Lawrence hasn't looked good, things like that. Mitch Morris is, what he meant to this team, I think, was more than what Gabe is. It is funny. Jen and I were just talking back in the sports office. Gabe was a captain last year. Like I guess I kind of forgot about that. Like, he was a leader on this team. He did have some memorable games, but the consistency wasn't there, all of those things. But I think Mitch Morris was viewed as, he was dad. He was the dad of the team. And I think that is something maybe that they will remember more. Josh talked about it yesterday that, he sees both of them as family, and he goes, I hope they view me the same way. But I think it is nicer now that they're not on the same side of the field. They're not going against each other. But it's 2 weeks into the season. I'm not going to overreact one way or another. Poyer didn't look great. Gabe has looked like Gabe. And I think the Jags offensive line has got to figure some things out. So I'm not going to overreact yet to what the Bills did. But right now, Bean looks pretty smart, getting rid of guys maybe a year too early than necessarily a year too late.
We've been on with you for over 10 minutes, and we haven't mentioned the Bills' offense really once. I mean, we're kind of spoiled here. You talk about what James Cook was able to do against Miami last week, Dan, but let's talk a little bit about what this Bills' offense needs to do against Jacksonville's defense. You mentioned that Miami was able to exploit it late in their Week 1 win. And just by looking through 2 weeks of action here, if Miami was able to come back against Jacksonville and the Bills were able to decimate Miami, it would stand to reason that the Bills shouldn't have much of a problem with Jacksonville's defense. And by the way, is Khalil Shakir going to go the entire season without a drop? I think everything that goes in sticks to that guy. Yeah,
he's been unbelievable, kind of reinventing what the modern-day NFL wide receiver is with his intelligence. Sean McDermott talks about calling him just a football player. He goes, don't have him run a 40, don't have him do a vertical jump, just the fact that he's a football player. As for this offense, Josh Allen has attempted the second fewest passes in the entire league. I asked him about that yesterday. For a team that has pretty much been Josh Allen-centric, they haven't been this through 2 games. And I know it's just 2 games, but they did have to come back against Arizona, and they still didn't abandon the run. Their offensive line has been good in run blocking. I mean, the holes that James Cook had, he wasn't touched until 4 or 5 yards down the field. This will be their biggest test with the Jaguars' front 4. They are very good. And to neutralize that, I expect there to be a lot of quick passes, quick screens, things like that, meaning I like Dalton Kincaid's over this week. I like Khalil Shakir's over this week. They have to find some way of getting defenses to respect a downfield passing attack. I asked Josh, is it weird the fact that you've attempted only 42 passes in 2 weeks? And he kind of laughed and smiled and was like, well, the way that James is running the ball, it's not weird. It's nice. And then that's where I give Joe Brady a lot of credit. I was very high on him when they went to him being full-time last year and obviously the full off season. He's got something that I really appreciate, that I want to ask him, coordinators, I remember Leslie Frazier a few years ago, wrote down on his wristband, don't blitz Patrick Mahomes. And, the mindset and the mentality you have to have. Joe Brady has the discipline to not try and outthink too much and overthink things. The Bills ran the ball well, and he just keeps hitting the button of, oh, you're not going to stop it? Perfect, we'll do it again. Oh, you didn't stop it again? We're going to do it again. We're going to do it again until you prove us that we can stop it. And a guy like that, I like Mike McDaniel, he's abandoned things. And it's he overthinks, okay, well, now I did that, so now I can do this. Joe Brady, it's like he has KISS written on his wristband. Keep it simple, stupid. Don't mess with what is working. And what's working right now is James Cook and this offensive line. On his 40-yard run, they triple-teamed the defensive lineman for the Dolphins, pancaking him. Awesome play through and through. all of that stuff. And I just appreciate the fact that Joe Brady hasn't fallen in love with, hey, I got 17 back there. Now I'm going to let it loose. It's, no, let's keep running the ball. They can't stop it. We're going to keep running it. And again, I think McDermott, I think Brady were a little bit ahead of the curve that we've seen around the NFL. There's only been 5 300-yard passing games through 2 weeks. All of those teams, none of those teams have covered or in those games. Defenses are adjusting. There's more running the ball. Sean talked about it. Josh talked about it. Defenses are getting smaller to deal with the speed of offenses, which is allowing the running backs to find more lanes and kind of play bully ball, which is what the Bills did against the Dolphins. I expect to see more of that while adding in a quick passing game, some screens to neutralize the Jaguars' pass rush.
Dan, last one for me, and it's actually a two-part question because are you changing your platform? And I'm going to paraphrase your take here. Like, why run the ball? And just as a throwing lead, or like so this is the NFL in 2024. So I imagine are you altering that take? And then what did you think of the Mel Kiper Jr. take today, saying that the too high safeties they should outlaw? Like this is the NBA from the 1990s that we're going to call illegal defense here in the NFL.
First, my take, it's always been I don't like running the ball if it's not effective. I don't like running the ball for the sake of running the ball so that you can run it into a brick wall and go, cool, on first down, now it's 2nd and 9. I think that's a waste. The Bills have been very effective at running it. I'm not against an effective running game. The Bills just haven't had that the last 2 years, so I feel like it's been a waste to take the ball out of Josh Allen's hands. This year feels different through 2 weeks, and going back to last year with Brady's MO, that they have been successful and productive running the ball. So I'm okay with that. As for Mel Kiper, horrible take. I tweeted it out too, like joking around, like I guess the MLB should ban pitchers from throwing the ball 100 miles per hour. The NBA should limit the amount of 3-pointers a team can take. And the fact that the NHL should make Connor McDavid play with his eyes closed. Like if you want to neutralize the game, like take away what teams do, like that's crazy. Like I appreciated the shifting. And I understand eliminating the shift in baseball to increase offense. That's fine. But the fact of there are teams, Arizona, other teams, like scoring, some teams are having no problem scoring. And it's the fact of can Josh Allen be disciplined enough to beat the cover 2 and the 2 high shell safeties? Hey, guess what? The Bills run the cover 2 high, the 2 shell safeties second most in the league, guys. The Bills are doing it really well. Like that, this is where the NFL is going. And now they swing back. And that's another credit to Sean McDermott, the fact that you had Poyer and Hyde back when it was a lot of one safety high, right? Micah controlled sideline to sideline. Poyer was in the box, more of a tackler covering the mid-range. Those guys leave, and you're like, well, how is so-and-so going to fill Hyde's role? Well, they haven't asked them to do Hyde. They have split the field in half. So you're not asking those guys to do something that Poyer and Hyde did. You're asking them to play their strengths. DeMar and Taylor Rapp, just play half the field. We're not going to ask you to be Poyer and Hyde. You guys take half the field, and we'll cover everything underneath. It's a bad take by Kiper to adjust the game planning of what teams do when it's like offenses have to adjust. And we've seen that. It just may not be as flashy. I am struggling to find overs to bet, but I don't think that this is a bad product by any means. Teams have to adjust.
Dan, speaking of the safeties quickly, you mentioned Rapp, you mentioned Hamlin. The Bills are 2-0. We saw Cole Bishop come in late in garbage time against Miami. What do you think what is it going to take for the rookie to get on the field short of an injury? We don't wish an injury. We don't want an injury, but is that really the only pathway for a Mike Edwards or a Cole Bishop to get some time on the field this season?
I think so, because I think both safeties have been fine. And I know I've talked about it on this program with you guys. The fact that originally I was like, you can't let Poyer and Hyde go. The safeties are so important in Sean McDermott's defense. They're built from the back to the front instead of front to the back. But Sean has been so good with safeties. And I always talk about this. Hyde was a really good player in Green Bay. They should have never let him go, Green Bay that is. But Poyer, they turned into an all-pro. Like he was a cast-off by a lot of teams in Philly and in Cleveland. Like Sean McDermott knows how to coach up safeties. He's coaching to their strengths. These two guys know the system better than Edwards and the rookie right now in Bishop. So unless there's some massive letdown by DeMar or Rapp, I don't see this changing. And I also don't see Micah getting a phone call anytime soon for that matter either.
Dan Fates, 13-win Buffalo Plus. What can we check out on those platforms coming up as we get ready for Bills Jags, Dan?
We got our Thursday live show on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel, 7:15. We'll answer your questions. It's pretty much now turned into our live podcast for the week. So if you don't tune into it, we'll take your comments. But if you don't, it'll be reposted Friday morning, 7 a.m. on the YouTube channel, as well as up wherever you get your podcast at 5 a.m. So if you're waking up tomorrow, you got something going on tonight, you're putting the kids to bed, you missed the show, we will have it up there tomorrow. Preview the game, all those good things and more.
Great work, Dan. Enjoy Monday night. Let's talk again soon.
Go Braves, kind of.
Go Gwinnett.
Go Gwinnett. You're up 12-3.
Okay, good. All right.
Against Cincinnati.
When you're wrong. We say it all the time. I want to get a sign instead of play like champions today like they have at Notre Dame in the sports bar. Our sign says no one cares when you're right.
So, if the Mets made the World Series, that's not good for the show. No, that's what you're saying? No,
not good for the show.
No, it'll make it's a trap. You bring joy and happiness to all the local Met fans.
Okay. Because that's what we want. That's what's good. Joy and happiness. No, we want to tell you you're wrong. We want to tell you you suck. That's what we want to do. And it's nice that you recognize what Dan was doing. I recognize it as well. It's a trap. He's just licking his chops, man. He's licking his chops that after a 4-game series with the Phillies that this is actually a race again and that the Mets aren't going to clinch anything. It's a trap. We'll see. We'll see how it all shakes out here over the course of the next few days, right? I mean, this weekend we'll have a good sense by the time we get to Monday. We'll take a break and come back. Mia O'Brien, 1010XL in Jacksonville, will be stopping by to give us the latest from the Jags. That's coming up here at about 4:25. We have time for your calls as well at 866-4326. It's been far too long since I've done this, but today I broke a seal. I did something that I haven't done in months. I had an apple, and I'm ready to unveil the 2024 Apple Power Rankings.
Are we talking like apples like Macintosh versus Sweet Tango, or are we talking apple crisp, apple pie? I guess we'll have to wait.
The variety of apples.
Oh, okay.
The variety of apples. I've got my top 3 ready to go. We'll get to that and more next. Mia O'Brien joining us in about a half an hour or so. And again, your call's at 866-4326.
You're listening to to Rochester and streaming online and in the Odyssey app. At The Fan Rochester, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester, an Odyssey sports station. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
On the Buffalo Bills Thursday injury report, Dwayne Smoot, Javon Solomon, and Casey Tuhill were all limited today. Ty Johnson and Quentin Morris both practicing fully. Meanwhile, down in Jacksonville, head coach Doug Peterson giving us an update on Evan Ingram.
Evan, right now, he's a little bit further away, so we'll have to take it kind of day by day, right now with him.
We'll talk to Mia O'Brien, 1010 XL in Jacksonville. She'll join us later this hour here in the Sports Bar. Week 3 of the NFL season begins tonight. It's the Jets hosting the Patriots. On the Major League scoreboard, the Orioles get a walk-off homer from Anthony Santander. 5-3, they defeat the Giants. The Braves are up big in Cincinnati, 12-3. They go to the 10th. Minnesota and Cleveland tied at 2. The Red Wings home tonight against Iowa. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, the Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
I like the Jags plus the points. I think there's a chance that Jacksonville could win this game outright. I think it's going to be a really good game. I know the Bills looked great last week. A lot of people are feeling good. I'm sure a lot of your listeners about their team, but that Jacksonville game this week, fellas, is going to be a tough one.
Jags seem to have our number aside from that rookie year with Josh, but
I don't buy any of it. I think the Bills front seven can get after the Jags. Trevor Lawrence, for whatever reason right now, has not off to a good start. I think a big loss for them would be Evan Ingram. If he doesn't play, we'll find out.
Mike Danger.
You could see it being a competitive game. Yeah, if you think that it's going to look like it looked on Thursday night with Jacksonville coming in, a healthy Jacksonville team coming in with a couple of familiar faces.
Gene Battaglia.
We're so caught up in the minutia of the Buffalo Bills, talking about all these details, but the number one important thing, you have one of the best in the game today.
We're spoiled.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Mia O'Brien, 1010XL in Jacksonville. Our guest in about 20 minutes will get the latest out of the Jags, including that injury to Evan Ingram that Gene referenced in his sports update. We appreciate you stopping by the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia with you at 95.7 FM, AM 950 locally, and the free-to-download Odyssey app or your smart device when you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan. We've got our video stream up on YouTube and Twitch. Our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester, on Twitch at The Fan Rochester as well. And you can get us on Elon's Twitter, that's X, at The Fan Rochester. Week 3 gets underway tonight. Jets and Patriots, a little AFC East divisional matchup that I'm sure Bills fans will want to scout just to see what both of these teams might look like.
Yeah, if you're a Bills fan, do you have a rooting interest? Or you're just kind of like, I would imagine, in a weird way, you're pulling for the Patriots here. You don't view them as the threat here, even though I think the Patriots are better than we kind of expected, that they're going to be physical, and their quarterback hasn't thrown up necessarily all over himself, hasn't been great. But
I just think that Mr. Mayo is the second best head coach in the AFC East. That right there might be reason enough that they get the win tonight. We'll see.
It's the inside joke here in the Sports Bar that when I asked Jared Mayo,
no,
that's what I called him.
Yeah, you can't call him Jared. It's not Jared.
To come on with us, he corrected me right away, and I was mortified. It's Gerard Mayo, but then he does the interview. He was really nice, gracious with his time, and then my mind is playing tricks on me, and at the end of the interview, rather than say, I can't get this wrong a second time, I just said, thank you, Mr. Mayo.
He was a rookie.
He was 21 years old.
You're a grown man talking to a 21-year-old.
I'm going, thank you, Mr. Mayo.
Yeah, because if you would have called him Jared a second time, he's probably grabbing you by the throat and pushing you into his locker. Yeah, smart move. I think most of us would do the same. Yeah, thank you for your time, Mr. Mayo.
Mr. Mayo.
Well, Mr. Mayo, in my opinion, is the second best head coach right now in the AFC East. I don't know that he has the second best quarterback in the AFC East. In fact, I know he doesn't have the second best quarterback in the AFC East, although you don't even know how long Jacoby Brissett is going to be the starter there. I think he's just limited. He's a limited player at this stage of his career, but you hear that they are working with Drake May during the week, and they're giving him a percentage of first-team reps, and so slowly they're developing him to be the guy, And maybe at some point this season, he is the guy that we see behind center. So you could watch tonight and hope that if you're a Bills fan, you can get a little bit of a sense of what these two teams are about for when the Bills have to face them later on in the schedule. But as we know, this is a week-to-week league, and things change awfully quick around here. So take what you see tonight with a grain of salt and recognize that it could be very different by the time these teams play the Bills later.
Yeah, we'll talk a lot of NFL tomorrow on the show, getting ready for a weekend, a Sunday, if you will, where, okay, the Bills aren't there. Which matchups do you like? And you can't even call this sneaky good anymore. It's a 2-0 team against a 2-0 team. The Texans and Vikings. I don't think we're surprised that the Texans are 2-0. Certainly the Vikings, nobody really thought, oh, gosh, you lost your quarterback. But there they are, 2-0.
I thought. But nobody cares when you're right.
Nobody cares. There's also an angle to this, too. Before we get to the Bills playing Steph Diggs in a couple weeks, Steph Diggs, for the first time, goes back to Minnesota.
Yes.
And I saw this on a Vikings fan site today. Are you booing or cheering the return of Steph Diggs? And as you can imagine, the response was varied there. And I would imagine that'll be the same response that'll get in Minnesota, varied. But if he came back to Buffalo right now, I think there'd be more boos than cheers. Honestly, who knows if we even get a Diggs return to Buffalo. I couldn't tell you where he's going to play next year.
It's early in the season, but through 2 weeks, I think he's been serviceable. I think what you're seeing in Houston is that they have a guy who's actually better than Steph Diggs. The Bills didn't have that guy. Gabe Davis wasn't that guy. But Nico Collins is better than Steph Diggs. At this stage of their careers, it's just clear. If you watch the game, Nico Collins is clearly the best target for that offense. And Diggs is doing what they're asking him to do, and he could still break ankles and run amazing routes. We saw it as recently as Sunday night. But, yeah, Nico Collins is exceptional. He's one of the best receivers in the league right now.
Brought it up to Dan Fates. Going into this, oh, gosh, it's Jordan Poyer. He's going to know all the secrets. He's going to come up with a play. It was the opposite. Jordan Poyer, this is why the Bills kind of moved on, right? 15-yard penalty, getting toasted, and took a bad angle against James Cook. I'm wondering if the same storyline danger is going to occur when we come back on Tuesday, because will Gabe Davis have a game with – heck, he had a 4-touchdown game once upon a time in the postseason. Will he have one of those games? I'm not thinking that would be the case. Or if Travis Etienne runs all over the place, then, yeah, everybody's going to want to hear what Mitch Morse has to say in his return.
Etienne is the one that would make me nervous. I'm not too – I mean, Thomas is somebody that I think you have to be aware of, and he's been an early target for Trevor Lawrence this year, the rookie, and he's been somebody that's been able to kind of get free and use his speed to his advantage. That makes me more nervous than Gabe Davis. And Etienne, I just love Etienne as a player. Etienne makes me nervous. Etienne has always made me nervous. I think Etienne is just a good football player.
Now that quick hockey take here. Now that we have the situation, if you will, with the Coyotes, they're in Salt Lake City. All right, we can clear the decks for expansion, and this is going to happen sooner than you think. Almost to the point where the NHL announce expansion before the NBA does, and it seems crazy to me that Atlanta is going to get a team, but that's what everybody's saying. I mean, they've lost 2, okay? They lost the Flames way back in the day. They lost the Thrashers, but they're going to get another one. Why? Because someone's got a lot of money. They got a lot of development, and let's face it, the Southeast is a little different now in the year 2024. And the speculation is that if Atlanta comes in, you're going to have to put a team in the West. So just for the sake of this, I'm going to say it's Houston and Atlanta. Well, if you do this, it's going to have an effect on the Sabres, Danger. How would you put this? And it almost begs realignment. Let's say in each conference, I'm only going to do the East here because that's really all we care about. You're not going to go with 2 8-team divisions, are you? No, probably would go with 4 4-team divisions. And this would create a Southeast division. Atlanta, Carolina, Tampa, and then Florida. It kind of sounds like the NFC South in football, right?
Right, sure.
Yeah. You have a New York division, the 3 Metro teams, but then who do you stick in as the 4th? For this, the way I would line up, I would say Boston, because in the Mideastern Seaboard, and you have Philadelphia and Washington, you have the 2 Pennsylvania teams. You put Pittsburgh in there, and Columbus is actually a stone's throw from Pittsburgh, which leaves the Sabres in a Canadian division. Leafs, Montreal, Ottawa, Buffalo. This is the way we get to the Sabres play in the postseason, Danger. Let Atlanta in realignment.
The only realignment I want to hear about in the NHL is 2 16-team divisions. I want to go old school and the top 8 teams get in, blow it all up, and bring it back. The traditionalist in me wants the 2 conferences to have 16 teams.
Oh, no. Like, I'm old enough to remember. You know how they were seeded? Just one. And everybody kind of go in. So you could have Buffalo against the Kings. You could, like, the conferences didn't matter. You would seed 1 through 16. Not 1 through 8, 1 through 8.
Yeah.
1 through 16.
Yeah.
That's how you ended up with the Flyers and Islanders one year in the Cup final.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I like that. No, the way we get the Sabres to the playoffs, if you've been following along in your feeds today, it's the team screwing something up and doing push-ups afterwards. Lindy Ruff is, I don't know if you know this or not, but so far what we've seen, his practices are pretty tough. Screw something up, do it again. You screw it up again, do it again with push-ups afterwards. I mean, seeing grown men doing push-ups as if they were in youth hockey and screwing something up, I'm okay with it. Do it.
It's not from the calisthenics point of view. It's from the, oh my gosh, this guy is an a-hole. Can you believe what he did to us? I can't believe. In a weird way, you get to bond with your teammates a little more if you have like a common guy that you're not. I can appreciate that approach.
I also think that there is a benefit to it. I mean, you're doing push-ups, so you are getting stronger, and we always complain that the Sabres, they're kind of tissue paper. They're not really, they're Charmin. They're not really a gritty team or a tough team, and maybe this helps give them some of that grittiness and toughness, bulks them up a little bit. But Lindy not holding back and seeing professional athletes doing NHL players doing push-ups like I remember doing when I'd screw something up in a practice. I'm like, okay, so we're treating the grown men like children, but I guess that's where we are, and that's totally fine. I'm good with it. Maybe it makes a difference. Gino, I know you've seen them around the studios. In fact, there's one within eyesight where you are.
I was kind of wondering. We saw the delivery last night, but boxes in the B studio. Now, I'm not one to walk into somebody else's studio.
These are our new neighbors next to us here in our new studios at High Falls. We're right next door. A pane of glass separates us and the studio that the B Morning Coffee Club broadcasts from every morning.
Right. So I'm not one to walk in and, like, take their food, but I'm like, are these apples all for them? The answer is no.
No, we got the email. As you know, if you're in a corporate environment, every now and then you'll get the email from somebody that makes the announcement that there's free food or something, your leftovers, or there's pizza. And then just like vultures, we all kind of gravitate to where the free food is. And the email came out earlier today from Megan, and she's like, hey, Sweet Tango apples for everybody who wants one. There's a box of them in our kitchen, in our break room. You can go and grab one if you want to. And Gino, who am I to say no? I indulged in one of the dozens of Sweet Tango apples that we have here at the station this afternoon, and I feel like it's time for a refreshed apple power ranking, even though when it comes to fruit in general in 2024, the Rainier Cherry is obviously number one with a bullet. It's not even a competition. I had a Rainier Cherry, a bowl of Rainier Cherries earlier this summer that was so delicious it knocked me on my ass. Some apple varieties have some work to do. They've got their campaign message. They've got to get it right. Their campaign messaging, it's no longer enough to be red or delicious or red delicious. We've got to see some players step their game up here. And it may be some recency bias, but at number 3, I'm going to go ahead with the aforementioned Sweet Tango, who's having an incredible year. And you want to know how I know that they're having an incredible year, Gene? Because, like I said, there's literally a dozen boxes of them in our studios. They're having a fantastic year. At number 2, we got to show love to the Granny Smith, the Georgia Bulldogs of the Apple world, a perennial top-ranked program. Number 1, and still the champ, the Honey Crisp. How good is it? Honey, sweet, crisp, firm texture, eats like a meal. I like the redundancy on the name as well. You could be the Honey Apple. Sounds tempting. You could be the Crisp Apple. I'm also intrigued. No, you're the Honey Crisp, a can't-lose selection. And I'm all about applying this strategy as well to my daily life. So henceforth, please refer to me as Fat Wallet Y Johnson Danger. Thank you.
Okay. The thing I learned this week, Danger, the Sweet Tango. So our friend Evan shoots Apple Mill.
Love Evan.
In order for him to grow and then sell the Sweet Tango, he had to pay $30,000 up front.
That's right.
It's like, wait a second. You have to like big legal document. I'm like, You're a farmer. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Just plant, grow,
Yeah.
just like the rest of us. No. If
Big
you're gonna go
Apple has him.
Big Apple.
Big Apple has him by the short hairs, and they want you to know, yeah, this is how good our product is. Sweet Tango. How delicious does that sound? Sweet? Of course, everybody wants sweet. Tango? Tango? Who doesn't love a tango? Who doesn't love a little dance? Sweet Tango Apple? Not bad.
All right. Impromptu power ranking for me. Ready?
See you working. Go ahead.
Number 5, Apple
Oh, you go
sauce.
top 5. Oh, this is just apples in general.
Apple products in general.
Got you.
Apple sauce. Like applesauce out of the jar, but when you make it fresh with a little bit of cinnamon, like the executive producer does.
I've never made applesauce, fresh applesauce. That sounds delightful.
Yeah, the girls would love it.
The girls would be mortified by it because they are massive consumers. They're going to hate me for saying this. Go-Go Squeeze. They eat the Go-Go Squeeze. They eat the Go-Go Squeeze like it's running, like it's going to come off the shelves at any day. They're addicted to it. They love it.
Number 4, hard cider. Nothing wrong with hard cider. I like hard cider, but what they're up against, competition. Are you reaching for the box wine, or are you reaching for the IPA or the hard cider? The hard cider this time of year, and especially if you get it locally, it's perfect.
I'll tell you my move with that. I'll go to a farm market and I'll get a jug of fresh cider, and then I'll spike it with some Fireball or some cinnamon whiskey, a little cider / whiskey combo with a little cinnamon in there. That's my go-to in the fall.
Number 3 on the list, I'm going to go with the candy apple. The candy apple where you kind of dip it in the caramel. Oh, yeah, that's really good.
When was the last time you enjoyed a candy apple?
I couldn't tell you when. Like, honestly, I got to go back to some sort of fair or something like that just to get the candy apple.
That's a childhood memory. That's how powerful that is, because it's a childhood memory for most of us.
Yeah.
And I couldn't tell you the last time I had one, but I can tell you that when I have had them, damn, that's good. Oh, that's so good. Yes.
Number 2, cider.
Just plain cider.
Just plain cider.
Mm-hmm.
Very healthy for you. Goes with any meal, and quite often I find myself reaching for a second glass.
Do you go cider on the rocks or just straight cider?
Just straight cider.
Yeah. I love
and
watching them produce it. I love the actual process that goes through creating a jug of cider, man. It is a process, but you can tell the guys that are doing it, there's a love affair there.
Okay, so and then your take on stuffing also applies to cider. Your take on stuffing. Why just, around the holidays? Just
have cider anytime.
Yeah, have cider year round.
I'm with that.
Number 1, apple crisp. The executive producer, this is her signature. Like apple crisp. This is why I put on the weight this time of year.
Apple crisp pie or apple crisp in general. Fantastic. Now, you going a la mode, or are you throwing a little vanilla ice cream on top?
Oh, yeah. Vanilla bean, yes.
Vanilla bean ice cream.
Yes.
Different than vanilla ice cream?
Oh, yeah, there's vanilla bean, there's French vanilla. There's different varieties of vanilla, Mike Dane.
Who knew that vanilla had such range? I had no idea. Okay, so you do a little scoop of the vanilla on the apple crisp. Heat it up. You got to heat it up.
Yeah. So not in my top 5, the apple pie. I go apple crisp over apple pie.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. I'm good with that list. I don't know that I would change things around a little bit. Maybe I would put the spiked apple cider instead of the hard cider. The hard cider for me, I'll drink it. But it's not my go-to. I mean, if you're giving me an option between hard cider and an IPA, I'm going IPA every time. But if I have cider and I have some whiskey, mix those two together. Not bad. Yeah, a little cinnamon whiskey. Mia O'Brien, I believe joining us from Ithaca, her alma mater.
That is it. She's at football practice. I'm like, wait a second. Like, you go back, you got to watch football practice? I wonder if she's calling a game.
She's always working. Yeah. Mia O'Brien, always hustling. 1010XL in Jacksonville. We'll talk about the Jags next on The Fan.
You're listening.
On the Bills Thursday injury report, Dwayne Smoot, Javon Solomon, Casey Toohill were all limited today. Ty Johnson and Quentin Morris both practicing fully as the Bills get ready for the Jaguars coming up Monday night. Josh Allen knows the history of the Bills against Jacksonville, not great.
You know, the last couple times we've played them, they've gotten the best of us. So taking that to account, obviously new D coordinator there, but they're flying around. They're playing real solid together. Defense, got guys with a lot of motor, and they don't let up. So we're going to have our hands full.
We'll talk to Mia O'Brien, 1010 XL in Jacksonville. She joins us next here in the Sports Bar. Week 3 of the NFL season begins tonight. It's the Jets hosting the Patriots. On the Major League scoreboard, the Orioles get a walk-off homer from Anthony Santander, 5-3 to defeat the Giants. Braves up on the Reds, 12-3 in the 9th. 2-2, Twins and Guardians in the 10th. Gene Battaglia, the Fan, Rochester.
The beer.
Next guest, I'm going to admit that I am so impressed by Mia O'Brien, and not just the work that she's doing at 1010XL down in Jacksonville. We're going to talk Jags with Mia. Mia, a few months ago, you shared on your social media accounts it was like a 2.5 minute long demo reel of all of the work that you do, not just, with the Jags, but just all of the college football and everything you do on both TV and radio and sideline reporting, and just the versatility of your work ethic. And I knew it was good because it felt like I was watching something for 10 minutes and it was only 2.5 minutes long. So, we had you on with us last year, I want to say, before the London game, and man, you were great with us then. We're so excited to have you back on with us here to talk about the Jags, and we understand that you've still got those upstate New York roots as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I appreciate the kind words, gentlemen. Really, really appreciate it. Happy to be joining you again. I am indeed already boots on the ground up here in upstate New York, or central New York, I guess we can say, as opposed to western New York, visiting the old alma mater. We decided to kind of coordinate a return trip to Ithaca College to coincide with Jags Bills on Monday night. And so the college was kind enough to fly me up last night, taught a couple classes this morning, a couple more still to come later this evening and tomorrow, and currently at Ithaca College football practice, where much like the Jaguars, they're looking to flip the script after an 0-2 start to the season.
Yeah, is it Butterfield Stadium? Is that it down there?
It is indeed.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Like, you're overlooking Cayuga Lake. I think it's a very picturesque setting, so I can picture exactly where you are right now. Mia O'Brien, 1010XL from Jacksonville, up here, again, visiting her alma mater in Ithaca. Mia, what's gone wrong? Loaded question here right out the get-go. 0-2, Jacksonville. What has gone wrong here so far?
Yeah, it truly is a loaded question, because if you're to simplify it, you could make the argument that if the ball bounces a different way on 5 total plays between the first 8 quarters of football the Jaguars have played in 2024, we're looking at a 2-0 football team and not an 0-2 team. But, of course, football is not that simple, and there's a lot of other things at play, whether that be play-to-play, the fluidity of the offensive play calling, which has once again become a hot-button topic in Jacksonville, the state of the offensive line. I think you could go to all 30 NFL markets and you would find a debate about their team's offensive line. And the defense certainly has been flying around. Ryan Nielsen's team played man-to-man coverage 70+% of the snaps they played against that high-powered Miami Dolphins offense in Week 1. And yet they have 0 takeaways to show for it between 3 preseason games and 2 regular season games. And so it's been a fascinating first few weeks of the season. I don't want to say that people are hitting the panic button in Jacksonville. I know fans definitely are. Don't get that impression from inside the building itself, despite certainly some rumblings of discontent across the board.
Well, and I was going to ask you about that, because when you hear the owner say, this is the best roster we've assembled, we need to start winning games. I mean, that – fair or not, he's the owner. He can say whatever he wants, but I feel like it puts a layer of pressure on everybody, including Peterson, who's won a Super Bowl, including Trevor Lawrence, who I think everybody believes should be farther along in his game than where he is right now. You expect more out of Trevor Lawrence in that offense.
Yes, most definitely. This is a playoffs or bust type season, I would think, at least from what Shad Khan said. Now, with that said, coming off of the 2017 AFC Championship season, people expected heads to roll not only after 2018 in a 5-win season, but after 2019 in a 6-win campaign. Instead, Dave Caldwell and Doug Marrone were retained until ultimately a 1-win season that led to the drafting of Trevor Lawrence in 2020. And so I think what's curious is we really don't have an idea of how long the leash is in Shad Khan's eyes, because he has been so patient with the likes of Doug Marrone, the likes of Gus Bradley, and certainly Doug Peterson in just 2 seasons has won more games in 2 seasons than those 2 gentlemen did in 4. And so, or I guess Doug Marrone technically not, because he won 10. Actually, no, I think Doug technically has. I'm doing the math in my head real quick. So the point is that it'll be curious to see, but I think the standard has been raised because this was a team that was in the playoffs 2 years ago, because of, if only on paper, the talent they've assembled. Shad Khan expects to see a return on his investment, both through free agency, the draft, the investment he's made in the coaching staff, et cetera, et cetera. And so, yeah, and to the Trevor point, you know, when I mentioned rumblings of discontent, look no further than Trevor in the press conference after Sunday's 18-13 loss to the Cleveland Browns, in which he said, point blank, we suck right now. And I asked Doug Marrone. Now I got Doug Marrone on the brain. Baloney. Hi, Buffalo friends. I asked Doug Peterson point blank, you know, on Monday on the Zoom call. I said, you know, what do you say to that? And he kind of chuckled and, you know, was like, yeah, like he's right. We do suck right now. And you want to hear your quarterback take ownership of it. But make no mistake about it, this is a very important juncture, not just for the Jaguars to get back on the track, but also for Trevor Lawrence to prove he was worth a $250+ million investment by this organization.
Mia O'Brien, our guest here at 1010XL in Jacksonville, and she's up at Ithaca College as we have Monday night coming up, Bills and Jaguars out in Buffalo. Mia, there are some crossovers in this game. You have 2 former Buffalo Bills down in Jacksonville. So part 1, how's it going so far for Mitch Morse and also wide receiver Gabe Davis? How are they fitting in? And what can you tell Bills fans about Dwayne Smoot, who may be in the lineup this week? He practiced limited today.
Yeah, Dwan's one of my favorite people on planet Earth. He is truly, as Josh Hines Allen has put it, he is the football version of Michael Jordan. Now, maybe not necessarily, or not Michael Jordan, excuse me, of LeBron James. I'm getting my goats confused here. Because not necessarily on the court per se, a LeBron James, a top 1, top 2 player of all time, but with regards to what he's been able to do off the football field, starting a school in Jacksonville, not just for his child, but for other preschool and elementary school age children with the LC Academy. And so that's why Josh Hines Allen has said he's literally LeBron. He quite literally built a school and has done so much else for the Jacksonville community. A great guy, certainly a rotational piece that I think the Bills will benefit from, keep some fresh legs for Greg Rousseau, my fellow Iowa Hawkeye, AJ Epineza. And so I think that he is more than capable of kicking inside if you need. The Jags used him a little bit, kicking inside on 3rd down, or even having him go on the outside with Arden Key kicking inside on 3rd down for stunts in the 2022 playoff run before, unfortunately, Smoot suffered that Achilles injury that hampered him throughout the course of his final season in Jacksonville, cost him the first 5 weeks of the season. And you guys know this with any Achilles or ACL injury, and certainly Von Miller has been very open about it. It really takes for both those injuries a full year and even a half season of playing before you feel like yourself again. And so I'm excited to see how Smoot is feeling and how he actually will look translating to the field in his first game action after that partial season last year. To the Mitch Morse and Gabe Davis conversation, Mitch Morse has been the most dependable offensive lineman since arriving in Jacksonville. That's not just from me. That's from people who study offensive line far more than I do, i.e. Jaguars Hall of Famer Tony Baselli. He has done a lot to solidify and stabilize an offensive line that really struggled from the interior with the regression of second-year center last year, Luke Fortner. And I think that right now it's just a matter of him and Trevor Lawrence continuing to get on the same page. We were told over the last few weeks there have been some miscommunication issues, which is amazing because, again, Mitch has been the most dependable offensive lineman that they've had so far this season and the most consistent at the very least. As for Gabe Davis, he was still coming off of that injury he suffered in his final few games in Buffalo, and so he was limited during the off-season program, limited slightly at the start of training camp, and so perhaps a little bit longer of a ramp-up period than many thought it would be. I honestly am surprised with the Jaguars' quote-unquote commitment that they made to be more of a vertical passing vertical passing offense after really being perhaps bogged down last year by focusing so much on the horizontal game. The fact that they doubled down, they signed Gabe Davis in free agency, they drafted Brian Thomas Jr. It honestly is kind of amazing that we haven't seen more Gabe Davis so far in 2 games this year.
Mia, let's talk a little bit about the late injury in Week 2 to Evan Ingram. I think it caught a lot of us by surprise. We found out that he wasn't going to play in Week 2, and we're wondering what his availability could be like here come Monday night. What's the latest on the Jags tight end?
Yeah, Doug said this morning he's a little bit further away than perhaps they anticipated. He officially said on Monday that he was week to week. I'm very curious to see exactly what comes of this. I was on the field during pregame warmups. I have a video on my phone of Evan warming up. Didn't appear to suffer any sort of discomfort. And so either it was when I wasn't looking or maybe afterwards when he went into the locker room to put on his uniform. It was shortly before inactives came out, which obviously hampered the Jaguars because they only had 47 active players. And so I think that it is a significant loss if he can't go on Monday night because he is that safety valve for Trevor Lawrence. But at the same time, I thought the second-year tight end out of Penn State, Brenton Strange, did a more than capable job. If you actually go back and you look at that final Hail Mary that Trevor threw, Brenton Strange came darn near to catching it and saving the Jaguars from just an abysmal second loss, and that they would have somehow escaped with a miracle catch. And the fact that he came as close as he did is a tribute to the natural athlete that he was at Penn State. Maybe didn't necessarily get as many reps there because of the tight end factory it's become and the lack of reps he's had in Jacksonville by virtue of being behind Evan Ingram on the depth chart, but he's also a capable blocker, and I'm curious to see how the Jaguars are able to incorporate the fact that he can line up more in line and then break out, as opposed to Ingram, who's naturally always going to be flexed out for the most part.
Yeah, Mia, the Bills have had success under Sean McDermott, as you know. They're going for their 5th AFC East title in a row, but boy, Jacksonville has just been a bugaboo here, whether it's the London game, the game that's a 9-6 final in a year that didn't go right for you could go back to the playoff game with Blake Bortles. What is it that gives Buffalo so much trouble? How do you view this matchup?
See, the funny part about it is I think there's a contingent of the fan base looking at it through that perspective. And then I do my live podcast, which I did do this morning on the 1010XL Jaguars YouTube channel, Duval Rundown. And my co-host, our web director, Gus Logue, reminded me that the Jaguars have lost their last 3 meetings in Buffalo.
That's right.
They just haven't played in Buffalo since 2018. And so I think that, you know, the people that are looking at this glass half empty in Jacksonville are pointing to that. The people looking at it glass half full are looking at it from the perspective of the Jags have had Sean McDermott and Josh Allen's number. And they also, again, 5 plays go the other way. This team could very well be 2-0. It's still a very talented team on paper. While everyone has struggled to put a finger on why there has been inconsistency, where the miscommunication has come from, again, the game is not played on paper, but you can't deny the talent that Trent Baalke has assembled on this roster. Is this the week it finally clicks? That's what everyone is wondering. And as for why they've had the Bills number, I think a large reason why, and we talked about it on Duval Rundown this morning on our podcast, we talked about the fact that the Bills in the previous 2 meetings have not really run the ball well. And if at all, quite frankly, I mean, James Cook had -4 yards the last time these 2 teams faced off in London. And so this is obviously a different look Bills offense. And while the Jaguars defense prides itself in stopping the run so you can have fun, it's going to be a tall task going up against Joe Brady and this revamped Josh Allen Bills offense.
Mia, let's talk a little bit about the talent on the defensive side of the ball that Baalke has assembled here, because we know about Josh Hines-Allen, and he's elite at his position. We know that Eric Armstead is one of those new additions. We see a familiar name in the secondary with Ronald Darby as well. Overall, how's this defense been performing through 2 games this season?
Yeah, like I said, no takeaways to show for it, but it's been a sticky defensive crew. I think the biggest thing that will shock many Bills fans when they're watching this game on Monday night is Ryan Nielsen's philosophical decision to be subbing players constantly. It looks like hockey shifts out there, folks. They are bringing not just their 4 defensive linemen off the field, they are rotating linebackers, they are rotating safeties. It is constant movement to keep guys fresh. Now, has that become a bit of a sticking point for some in the Jaguars fan base? Because if Foye Oluokun, for example, is one of the best inside linebackers in the National Football League, why is he only playing 83% of the snaps? He should be playing 100% of the snaps. And so I'll be curious to see if that evolves over time, especially going up against a group that obviously is one of the most high-powered offenses the Jaguars will face this season.
Yeah, Mia, last one for me. And when you get out to Buffalo coming up on Monday, you're going to notice the new stadium right away. You can't not miss it. It's across the street. Cranes are up. It's an exciting time here in Western New York. Exciting down there in Jacksonville, too. That it's a go, correct? The new stadium, not really new, but the massive renovation that's going to take place. Tell us a little bit about it. And it's going to be so massive, you're going to have to find a temporary home. What's the latest on that?
Yeah, so the owners will officially vote in October. The expectation is that Shad Khan has been able to lobby and spoken with enough owners that the Jaguars expect for that vote to pass at the end of October, and officially will be all systems go for a renovated, reimagined Everbank Stadium in downtown Jacksonville. The bones are good. That's what they keep telling us. And so this process is going to be stretched out over about 3 years. And so in 2025, so at the end of this calendar year, at the end of this football season, they will begin to start working on things outside of the stadium. The Jaguars will still play at Everbank Stadium in 2025. In 2026, at the encouragement of the fan base, after soliciting feedback, the Jaguars will have a limited capacity crowd in 2026. I forget the exact number, so don't quote me on that, but there will be a limited number of fans, not as significant. It's not like we're talking 50% here. I believe it's about 70% of what the stadium currently holds because of the fact that they will be taking out the upper tier. In 2027, the Jaguars will be forced to relocate for that season. We don't know right now where they will be playing. The expectation is that it will be either Orlando at Camping World Stadium, Gainesville, Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, which is also expected to undergo renovations later this decade. And then, of course, the idea of could they play even more than just their 2 games in London that they have played each of the past 2 seasons during that 1 year of 2027, with the hope being that the Jags' renovated, reimagined stadium will open in 2028.
Mia, does that talk ever die? I mean, knowing that he has ownership of Wembley, is the talk of Jacksonville relocating to London all but dead with this news of the renovated stadium?
It is absolutely dead, sir. We are very excited to tell folks like you guys to buzz off and not have to deal with it. I say that with all the love and respect in the world. You should have seen Jason LaCanforo's mentions when the city council vote went down in June. It got ugly on X or Twitter, whatever you call it these days, because Jaguar fans couldn't wait to rub it in everyone who has ever questioned their existence in Northeast Florida, who's ever questioned how long the longevity of that franchise there, to say, haha, we told you so, we ain't going anywhere.
Jacksonville needs a win, certainly. The Bills are at 2-0. How do you view this playing out Monday night?
Yeah, like I said, this is not only an important juncture for this team in this season, but I think for Trevor Lawrence's development, because if it looks as clunky as it has the last 2 weeks on offense, there's going to be serious questions. We still don't know if it is Doug Peterson or Press Taylor as the play caller. I can tell you this, we are getting, from being in the locker room and from conversations I've had, all signs of there is some sort of discontent, whether that is with the head coach or with the play caller, or rather with the head coach or the offensive coordinator. That remains to be seen. And so, look, if they don't turn it around here, it's going to be mighty hard to go 0-3 and heading into Houston next week at NRG Stadium. And so we'll see what happens, because quite honestly, I could see this going either way. I could see this completely coming off the tracks and the Buffalo Bills running crazy all over the Jaguars, although I think the Jaguars defense will certainly hold up its end of the bargain. But if that offense looks clunky again, they very much could come off the tracks. On the other side of the coin, this is also a team that, again, has talent on paper. Is this the week that they finally put it together?
Mia, fantastic catching up with you. Enjoy your weekend in upstate New York, and let's do it again soon.
Absolutely, boys. Appreciate you having me on.
Thanks, Mia. That is Mia O'Brien, 1010 XL, who is actually doing that from Ithaca football practice today.
I tell you what, and I said it at the beginning, I'll say it again, like, she shared it, a couple of months ago, like, this is my demo reel, this is what I've been working on, this is what I do, and it was just so impressive. And as I was watching it, I'm thinking to myself, if I'm an executive at ESPN and I see this, I'm wondering why she's not on our payroll, because I would imagine a big company like Disney, ESPN specifically, would look at this and be like, oh, here's somebody that's versatile, that can do anything we ask them to. Because you see everybody in the world that we live in now, in our world in media, it's like you can't just do one thing. You have to do everything. Like, newspaper writers aren't just newspaper writers anymore. They're doing podcasts. They're doing videos. They're doing whatever is being asked of them, and Mia is certainly an example of that.
Content creators and you're
That's right.
Journalists with opinion. text here from Kevin Roche.
Oh, that's our buddy Kevin Roche from Friday Night Rivals.
Yeah, Kevin Roche, many years, 13 whams over at RIT now, with us on hockey. Surrounding yourself with these bombers, Catalana, Mia, me. Genius moves by the executive producer.
Is that me? Who's he calling the executive producer? Oh, the executive producer.
Yes.
Did the executive producer book Mia O'Brien?
She did not. No.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't think that.
All right.
I don't think the executive producer lines up
we
together.
We can give her credit. That's fine. I'm not about to steal that shine. Congratulations to the executive producer. Thanks for booking us these great guests from Ithaca.
Not booking Kevin, though.
No.
Nope.
We need Kevin on again. I mean, he made his one visit. Hopefully we have the chance to talk to Kevin later this hockey season if RIT is doing what we all want them to do. Appreciate that, Kev. We'll see Kevin in Hilton, my neck of the woods, East Hilton
next week.
Next week when we
there's NASCAR this Friday.
We have Hilton and McQuaid coming up a week from Friday. That's going to be a lot of fun. We'll get to a happy hour next in the sports bar. We'll get to a round of shots as well next in the sports bar. Mel Kiper Jr., a takesman. This was an interesting take by Mel Kiper Jr. We'll share what he said in terms of what we can do to make the NFL offense a little bit more productive here with the slow start that we've seen so far here through 2 weeks of this season. Hey, right now, if you want to win some free tickets to see Tom Segura at Key Bank Center September 27th, just be caller 5 at 866-4326. 585-866-4FAN. Tom Segura, Key Bank Center, September 27th, courtesy of Live Nation. You can get tickets on sale now at Ticketmaster.com or just be caller 5 at 866-4326. 866-4FAN.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger. BF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. The Fan, Rochester. Sports update.
On the Bills' Thursday injury report, DeJuan Smoot, Javon Solomon, Casey Toohill were all limited. Ty Johnson, Quentin Morris both practicing fully today. Meanwhile, down in Jacksonville, head coach Doug Peterson giving us an update on Evan Ingram.
Evan, right now, he's a little bit further away. So we'll have to take it kind of day by day. Right now with him.
Week 3 of the NFL season begins tonight. It's the Jets hosting the Patriots. On the Major League scoreboard, the Orioles get a much-needed win, a walk-off homer from Anthony Santander. 5-3, they defeat the Giants. Shohei Ohtani with his 50th steal of the season. He's 2 home runs away from becoming the first 50-50 man in Major League Baseball history. Dodgers leading the Marlins 1-0. Yankees trailing in Seattle 3-0. Braves over the Reds 15-3. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, the Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
I like the Jags plus the points. I think there's a chance that Jacksonville could win this game outright. I think it's going to be a really good game. I know the Bills looked great last week. A lot of people are feeling good. I'm sure a lot of your listeners about their team, but that Jacksonville game this week, fellas, is going to be a tough one.
Jags seem to have our number aside from that rookie year with Josh, but
I don't buy any of it. I think the Bills front 7 can get after the Jags. Trevor Lawrence, for whatever reason right now, has not off to a good start. I think a big loss for them would be Evan Ingram. If he doesn't play, we'll find out.
Mike Danger.
You could see it being a competitive game. Yeah, if you think that it's going to look like it looked on Thursday night with Jacksonville coming in, a healthy Jacksonville team coming in with a couple of familiar faces.
Gene Battaglia.
We're so caught up in the minutia of the Buffalo Bills, talking about all these details, but the number one important thing, you have one of the best in the game today.
We're spoiled.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
It's happy hour in the sports bar. Danger and Battaglia. Week 3 of the NFL gets underway tonight. The Patriots and the Jets. We spent a lot of time this afternoon looking ahead to the Bills Week 3 matchup coming up on Monday night as the Buffalo Bills host the Jacksonville Jaguars. Big thanks to Mia O'Brien, who joined us last hour from 1010XL in Jacksonville, and Dan Fates, Buffalo Plus, and 13 Wham Sports, who stopped by the sports bar in the 3 o'clock hour to share their thoughts on both sides of this matchup. And boy, going into this week, I think we kind of view the Bills through this lens of nice start, better than I think we expected. And the Jags, I think what we've always thought about the Jags, it feels like they're underachieving again, but a desperate team coming into Buffalo coming up here on Monday.
Yeah, and Mia was great. Mia O'Brien, 1010XL. And one of the things I wasn't aware of, this is why we talk to people, and if you were watching on YouTube or Twitch, you saw me wringing my hands like Mr. Burns saying, excellent. Hearing, I didn't know they had a play calling controversy. All right. Yes, that's what I want to hear. Like a team coming in, who's calling the plays? Let's blame this on the head coach. Is it going to be the coordinator? Is Doug Peterson taking over? This is a team through 2 weeks, because of the expectations that the owner has said, they're coming in with a lot of pressure. And to hear Mia O'Brien saying, I could easily see this going completely off the rails this season. I'm starting to lean that way here for this Jaguar team. And then when we factor in, it's just a simple question. Like, why do the Bills struggle against Jacksonville? Well, when was the last time they actually struggled against Jacksonville up in Buffalo? Was that the Leftwich game, the opener from 2005? Like, what was it? The Bills have won the last 3 up here. So we'll give our official picks tomorrow. But right now, I think it's looking good for the Bills to go 3-0 here.
We've talked to a lot of people through the course of the week. I mean, Dan earlier today said that 5 points might be too many, and you might take the Jags with the points. PJ Glasser, same thing. Hey, wouldn't surprise me if the Bills, won this game, but I think giving Jacksonville that many points, they could keep this close, and it's a desperate situation for the Jags. So PJ likes the Bills and the points as well, but you mentioned the Bills and the success that they've had at home against Jacksonville and the ghosts that we see in our mind when the Bills go down to Jacksonville and when they play them in London. It's a hard image to get rid of, Sal Capaccio joined us yesterday. Says this is all nonsense. Forget it. This is a Bills team that should be able to get after Trevor Lawrence. And after talking to Mia, you got to feel a little bit better about the Bills' chances of not just winning, but winning and covering on Monday night, knowing that Jacksonville right now doesn't seem like there's a lot of buy-in offensively between head coach, offensive coordinator, and quarterback, that there's some dysfunction going on there.
Yeah, the Bills, when you look at the box score, I'm glad Mia brought this up, Lester. How did they even lose by 5 against the Jaguars last year? James Cook in that game, 5 carries for -4 yards. Latavius Murray, 2 carries, 6 yards. Damian Harris still on the team at that point, 3 carries, 13 yards. Your leading rusher was Josh Allen, 4 carries for 14 yards. Meanwhile, on the other side, Travis Etienne, 136 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns in that win. Trevor Lawrence in that game threw for 315 yards. Okay, that was an offense that went for 500 yards against the Buffalo Bills. What do we remember about that game? 2 big injuries. That did not help out.
2 big injuries. I remember the Bills just being out-physicaled, and I remember Lawrence hitting some passes and completing some passes that I was just like, there's no way that should have been caught. Like, just some very much like the Denver game where passes were being made, and you're like, no chance, and then somehow it's completion. And some of those completions happening in the end zone, and specifically in that Denver game. But the Bills' bottom line in that game in London just felt to me like they got pushed around. And I'll go back to the Urban Meyer loss. That felt like a game where they got pushed around. Now, if you want to go back as far, it's a different team. I mean, it's every year is a different team. And the year that Josh Allen had to hear Jalen Ramsey call him trash, and he beats Jalen Ramsey, and that's at home, and the Bills win that one comfortably. That was the Leonard Fournette fight game, remember?
By the way, I love how we titled that the Urban Meyer loss, because the guy was such a if it didn't work out, that's one thing, but he was such a jerk, and then he was caught.
Mia didn't even mention him when we talked. She didn't even bring him up. Like, he's not even, like, they've wiped him free from the memory. He's like, they took the magnet to the database and like, nope, forget it. You don't remember the Men in Black zapper where they just their memory erased. They forgot about the season with Urban Meyer.
It's like every college football fan base, like, oh, should we bring back Urban Meyer? I mean, that year was so toxic in Jacksonville. I don't even know if you're doing that a down and out Power 5 team. That was really bad. 14 carries, 28 yards in that loss in London. Monday night, we'll give our official picks tomorrow here in the Sports Bar.
Okay, we mentioned this earlier. We actually brought it up to Dan as well, Dan Fates, who joined us earlier. Mel Kiper Jr. Is Mel Kiper Jr. a takesman? I mean, we know that when draft season comes around, he has his opinions on prospects. And he's not going to be right all the time. He's not going to be able to predict exactly where every prospect lands or where they have, what kind of a career they're going to have. He's mainly a positive guy when it comes to the prospects. I mean, he keeps everything on the up and shares a lot of knowledge. And let's face it, the NFL draft wouldn't be the spectacle that it is if it wasn't in part because of Mel Kiper and his opinions on these prospects.
He's really a trailblazer. Just like he helped great. There were guys ahead of him, I understand, but why the NFL draft is a cottage industry for many, you can thank Mel Kiper, because he took it to a different platform. He took it to TV, and he did talk radio for many years. I remember hearing him on Saturday mornings, and he'd offer opinions, but it'd be opinions like you and I kind of watching the NBA. Like, okay, we're not really into it, but we're watching you. We're kind of giving your opinion. So Mel Kiper Jr. has opinions, I've learned over the years, but when it comes to football, nothing like this. Mel Kiper Jr. today giving the take that 2 high safeties in the NFL should be outlawed. Like an illegal defense in the NBA back in the day, like the shift in baseball. Like, we should get rid of this. It would be better for the game because fans want to see bigger plays. Danger, as long as the TV ratings are good, and they're not just good, they're excellent. But the second there becomes a dip, and maybe we got to juice up the game a little bit. I'm just wondering if that's going to be an idea that eventually the competition committee it'll be brought to, and like, hey, should we do this where you can only keep 2 safeties up high?
Who's in the competition committee? Oh, yeah, that's right. Sean McDermott's on the competition committee. You think he's going to pass that one through? Oh, yeah, sure. I'll just alter the one thing that I know about my defense that makes my defense great, and the personnel that I have back there. It doesn't really matter who's back there as long as they know where they need to be. I'm with you. I don't think that there will be that significant a change or a rule change to ban a defensive formation unless we revolt. And we're not going to, because I don't mind seeing James Cook rush for long touchdowns. I don't mind seeing rushing plays on first or even second down. I don't mind watching running backs that you didn't expect to excel, J.K. Dobbins, excel and have a really, really good, good start to the season. Of course you want the long plays. There are ways to be too high safety. You can beat it with speed and throw over the top of it, and I think Kansas City recognizes that with their selection of Xavier Worthy in the first round. We're going to continue to watch that and be haunted by that as long as he's wearing the Chiefs uniform. I don't see it ever happening. I see the pendulum eventually maybe swinging the other way when the league goes one way, good teams find a way to succeed going the other way, zig when others zag. And right now it sure feels like the Bills have an offense that can beat you with the pass if needed, but would love to maul you first in the run game, knowing that most defenses now are built up with players who are undersized and more athletic and fast to keep up with, to prevent those big plays from happening. So let's just run you over. Let's just maul you and take what you're giving us. And what you're giving us is the opportunity to push a 350-pound lineman down your throat. Good luck trying to stop the run.
What's interesting here is Mel Kiper actually may be wrong in the two high safeties, because True Media breaks down everything. This is courtesy of the 33rd team here. And not to get too XOE on you here, but the majority of plays in the league this year, 53%, have been single high safety. 53% single high safety. Cover 3, the most common look there. What makes the Bills' secondary unique is, what are they playing? I think this is actually a testament to Buffalo, because it's easy to say, oh, that's two high safeties. Is it? When the ball is snapped, watch all the movement of the safeties. If you're going to go to the game Monday night, let me make a suggestion. It doesn't have to be next Monday night. Anytime you go to a football game, you know what's fun? Watching away from the football. Watch what the safeties do. Watch what the corner does. You don't have to watch the quarterback on every down. Watch whatever else is happening, and then if the ball comes away, boy, you feel like you're really ahead of the curve. But I think defenses also have gotten a lot more complicated in this regard, and I'm going to tip my hat to Sean McDermott. He's ahead of the curve on this. Cam Lewis, he's not a physical specimen. Jamarcus Ingram, not a physical specimen. You could even say Taron Johnson, okay? But Taron Johnson developed into that all-pro type of level. It's the fact that the Bills identify this, and they have this system, and then they get guys that they will nurture and develop in the system. And for all these years, I'm going to put my hand up. I was wrong. I thought, oh, Cam Lewis, what are we doing with Cam Lewis? Why? Well, that's the reason why. So where I think that Mel Kiper maybe has a point, I think that's a little too simplistic, that defenses are actually on the back end making it more difficult to throw.
Yeah, and to your point on McDermott and Cam Lewis and Jamarcus Ingram stepping up, Balen Spector, who we'll see on Monday night. I mean, this was Sal's point yesterday, and I agree with it 100%, because throughout the NFL, it feels like the constant is always going to be change. You're going to see teams reshuffle the deck, and a lot of times you're going to see teams reshuffle their coaching staff, and when that happens, you have to bring in the right personnel to fit your scheme. And the Bills have had continuity and consistency. The Chiefs have had continuity and consistency, and they've been able to keep guys around and develop guys who might not be the most talented. Let's face it, they're late round draft picks or undrafted free agents for a reason, but they work. They get after it. They do bulk up in the weight room. They do get more physical. Cam Lewis today is not the same Cam Lewis that we saw Justin Jefferson posterize a couple of seasons ago. So that familiarity, the ability to absorb what's being taught by McDermott in this defense and not have somebody else muddy up the waters. And Bobby Babich is a part of it too now, right? Bobby Babich has been here. He knows how McDermott thinks. He knows what this system and this defense is supposed to look like. So you can, and he has coached these guys to know where they need to be and how they can break up plays and how they can best cover guys in their zone. It's it's a testament to the continuity I think that they've had over the course of the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, and to the point that baseball changed the rules. Well, they really needed to. You need more ball in play here. Getting rid of the shift has been good for baseball.
Yeah, baseball's not pulling in the numbers that the NFL pulls. They don't have. They have problems.
No, and for the NBA, why did they get rid of the illegal defense? Well, that was nothing more than the zone. You could never play a zone. Okay, you play a zone now in the NBA. Okay, Steph Curry or whoever's going to shoot right over the top of it. Okay, so the idea that the NFL needs to change their defense, I can't imagine we're going to get to a point where 5 yards illegal defense. Like, no, nobody wants to see that.
Yeah.
Just kind of adjust on the fly. Danger, who is Brenton Strange? He may be the starting tight end for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He is a second-round pick out of Penn State from a couple years ago, only 6 targets this year. If you're going to scheme up a plan to beat the Buffalo Bills, I'm thinking you're testing out those linebackers and you're testing out, hey, Spector and Williams, they're going to be eager, they're going to be active. Can you get them to be overly active? And I think that's the concern here. I'm not worried about the Jaguar tight ends. I am worried about ETN. I am worried about a cutback here. We saw that last year, and now you're not facing 1 but 2 backup linebackers this week.
Yeah, ETN is a problem in my mind. I've just always thought he's a good player and somebody that is going to be hard to defend against. The other player that's an unknown, and the Bills haven't seen him yet in his young career, that's Brian Thomas Jr. I mean, the Bills were able to contain the speed of Hill and Waddle in Week 2 in Miami. Will they be able to contain the speed of Brian Thomas here Week 3 with Jacksonville coming to town? I'm paying attention to that as well. I'm not as concerned about Gabe Davis or Christian Kirk. Neither have had really a good start to the season. I mean, Gabe Davis has had a Gabe Davis kind of start to his season. He's not catching everything that's being thrown his way. And you haven't seen him really factor into this Jags offense. And it was nice and refreshing to hear Mia mention that Mitch Morse has actually been the most consistent offensive lineman for Jacksonville up to this point this season. You love to hear that from Mitch Morse, but at the same time, you look around what's around him, and man, maybe that's part of the problem there in Jacksonville is that you really don't have what looks to me on paper to be a really strong offensive line protecting Trevor Lawrence.
Do you know who the starting corners are for Jacksonville?
Yes.
Monteric Brown, who was a 7th-round pick.
Yeah.
And Ronald Darby?
That's right.
Ronald Darby, still in the league, 2015. Ronald Darby, guy the Bills traded away, and I'll give him credit for still hanging around.
He's been everywhere, hasn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like he's been everywhere since, and that, this is a Ronald Darby revenge game? I mean, this is the regime that traded him out of Buffalo. Ronald Darby revenge game?
Shame on us as hosts. We've asked all our guests this week, oh, my gosh, you got Gabe Davis coming back.
Yeah.
You've got Mitch Morse. I didn't realize it was a Ronald Darby revenge game here, too.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that kind of speaks to where they're at, right? Like, that's your starting right corner, Ronald Darby.
That is tasty.
No.
This is not Jalen Ramsey coming up.
It is not.
No.
It is not, no. However, Josh Hines-Allen is something that is going to keep the Bills' offensive line. He's going to keep their hands full. And hearing that the rotation that's happening with that defense isn't just the defensive line, that it's really like everybody on that defense is rotating. So as we talk about Ronald Darby, but if what Mia is saying is true, that they just rotate everybody throughout the position. They don't really have starters. They just kind of everybody contributes on the defensive side of the ball. Including some other names that you might be familiar with, guys like Trey Flowers, who is on this roster as well. Eric Armstead, of course, the acquisition from San Francisco in the offseason. So we'll monitor that on Monday as well. You mentioned we'll give our predictions for Monday's game tomorrow because Monday, no sports bar, just pregame. We'll give you pregame coverage of Bills and Jags starting at 3 o'clock Monday afternoon. Don't forget, it's an early kickoff on Monday, with that happening at 7:30 as the Bills host the Jaguars in Week 3.
Are you working on a new radio voice, or you got a cold there?
I'm battling, dude. I think I told you yesterday, and if you're watching on the on our YouTube channel at the Fan Rochester, I got to apologize. I mean, nobody wants to see me blowing my nose every 30 seconds or grabbing a sip of water just to make sure that I don't dry. I'm battling a pretty good head cold here, Gino. Thanks for being patient with me and also keeping your distance. The last thing I want to do is pass. I think it was my nephew. I'm fairly certain my nephew brought something home from school.
Yeah.
And when I get him on the bus in the morning, I give him a little fist bump, and whatever happened, it hit me. It hit me Tuesday night. Yesterday was a struggle. I feel fine. It's just all the congestion.
No, I'm just saying, like, it gives you that radio raspy voice.
Is that what I'm going for?
Yeah.
I'm going for that radio raspy voice.
Yeah, it's Mike Danger here in the sports bar. Patriots Jets tonight, for those who care, Prime Video. I am not going to watch this. I'm going to watch the Mets Phillies because I like being a fan sometimes. But Patriots Jets, important, I guess, from the Bills in the AFC East chase here. I think it's pretty clear. You're pulling for the Patriots, right? You don't want to give the Jets any hope. A Jets loss to the Patriots, a team you think you're superior to, but if we're just kind of going down the line here, Patriots give them a game here tonight, right?
I think it's a contested game. Yeah, I think it's tight. I think it's
like field goal fest, right?
If you want to fade my picks, I'll give them to you right now. These are my 3 favorite plays from tonight's game. And by all means, feel free to fade, because if I mention them now, the opposite will happen. I like the under at 38.5 between the Patriots and the Jets. Let's face it, it's a Thursday night game, and I don't think either of these offenses have looked really, really sharp so far through 2 weeks. I also like the under for Jacoby Brissett at 166.5 passing yards. He's been limited and hasn't hit over that number yet through 2 weeks. Garrett Wilson, over 5.5 receptions against the Patriots tonight as well. I think he's your primary target, and if anybody's going to go off for the Jets, I would imagine it would be that Rodgers to Garrett Wilson connection.
So 38.5, would you believe, and this is maybe a sign of where we are at here this year, as, we'll spend more time in this tomorrow, but would you believe there's actually 2 games that are lower than that?
Wow.
One, and it's not a surprise because the quarterback has been really porous when it comes to the turnovers. And the other team, we're not sure who's at quarterback. That's Green Bay, Tennessee. 38 for the over-under in that game. And they're showing pictures of Jordan Love practicing limited.
I don't think Love is playing.
What? You can win this game without him.
I don't think Love is playing.
Malik Willis revenge game. The other one being, maybe this is a surprise. Maybe it's maybe Justin Herbert isn't playing. 36 for Chargers Steelers.
No, that doesn't surprise me either.
Really?
That's in Pittsburgh. That's a low-scoring affair. Both of those coaches are going to want to muck it up.
36 is really low for an NFL game, though.
And talk to anybody who's a Steelers fan, and they'd probably be like, yeah, that sounds about right. I just don't think either of those teams are going to score a lot of points. Touchdowns might be at a premium with 2 defenses that want to get after each other there. And turnovers, I could see Justin Fields turning the ball over.
In the Chargers are getting 1.5. I don't know. That just looks too easy to Harbaugh going into Pittsburgh and Harbaugh matching the Steelers. The games you think they win, they don't. I'm liking the Chargers here on the road.
You think the Steelers could go to 3-0 by beating the Chargers? I mean, the Chargers, West Coast team, traveling east,
True.
Early kickoff. I mean, we know how that narrative usually goes. Herbert, not 100%. If Herbert plays, I do like the Chargers. But he's not 100%. Both teams want to be physical. Both teams want to run the football first. Yeah. I mean,
and it's your guy, Justin Fields.
It's Justin Fields.
Are you watching from afar going, oh, like that's your ex-girlfriend going, oh, yeah.
No, because I actually, this is going to sound like he's my ex-girlfriend. I wish him well. I really want him to be a success. Like, it wasn't like he was a bad dude when he was in Chicago. He just wasn't, the Bears ruin quarterbacks. It's what they do. And Justin Fields is no different. I don't necessarily think he's a great thrower of the football. He is a playmaker. He's an unbelievable athlete. And the Steelers, through 2 weeks, have found a way to kind of untap what he's good at and not ask him to do too much. He's been fine. And he's probably your starter, even if Russell Wilson's calf doesn't bother him. He'll be inactive wearing his gear on the sideline, even though he has no chance of getting it because he's been ruled inactive. That's Russ's play. No, Justin Fields will be fine. What's got your attention over there?
No, I'm just looking at some of the stuff here. Peter writing in, we're really blowing off Jets and Patriots tonight. It's for second place in the AFC East. Peter, yep, we got to it there, bud. So appreciate you as always.
Peter's prediction, 21-13, Jets over the Patriots. I'm going to go, let's see, I took the under at 38.5. Give me, I like 2017 Patriots. 2017 Patriots.
Wow. 16-10 Patriots.
Going to be a scintillating Thursday night matchup.
You're gonna turn over to baseball. Trust me on this.
I don't think so.
Jack, who is his real name?
It's not a real name.
Let's remember last year the Bills took a red-eye to London while Jacksonville was well adjusted to the time change. McDermott took a beating for taking the team overseas way too late. Yeah, that was one where, remember the sports science department, you bank sleep and everything's going to be fine.
I mean, I imagine that if you bank sleep, it will work, but do the players have the discipline to bank sleep? I mean, when you're talking about getting that amount of rest, I go to bed every night with the intention of getting a good 8 hours. It never happens.
You can do that, but your body is still saying, wait a second, it's light out. I should be going to bed, or vice versa. Like, jet lag is a thing. So I didn't think the bottom line of the NFL didn't do the Bills any favor. You want to talk about a bad schedule last year. The fact that Jacksonville, they played Baltimore the week before, the fact that they hung out in London for a full week and their bodies were adjusted. But if the Bills had to do it all over again, and probably could be as soon as next year. In fact, if I had to make a prediction before the new stadium goes up, yeah, you know what? Take away a home game from the Bills next year. I'm just bracing for something like that. The second the game is done at home, get on a plane, go over.
I wonder if this is another element that might work in Jacksonville's favor come Monday night, that the Bills could view this could be a look-ahead spot for them. I mean, Baltimore in Week 4, Baltimore's in a must-win situation going down to Dallas this weekend as well.
I don't think so, just for the reason that you can't beat this team for whatever reason. Now, again, it was in London. It's been in Jacksonville. The last time you had a game here in Buffalo, you got to go back to the Jalen Ramsey game. And I call it the Jalen Ramsey game because he ran his mouth before, and then he got burned by Robert Foster.
Yeah. Josh Allen is trash. Josh Allen, what do you think? Trash. Yeah. There are some people in the NFL that still think he's overrated. Well, we'll look forward to that. That's coming up, again, early kickoff on Monday night, 7:30. Pregame starts here on the Fan Rochester at 3 o'clock. Our predictions for that game tomorrow afternoon in the sports bar. And while we're talking about tomorrow afternoon, we should mention that Andy Behrens will be stopping by his usual time, Friday afternoon, 3:25. We'll set your lineup for fantasy football, your Week 3 lineup, help you get a championship. Andy Behrens of Yahoo Fantasy at 3:25. And 4:25, our buddy Thor Nystrom, living the fantasy life, right? He's working with Matthew Berry's outfit now, and we'll get set for a weekend of college football as well. Thor will get his take not just on college football, but on the 2-0 start for his Minnesota Vikings and how Sam Darnold has kind of looked in this Kevin O'Connell offense.
Yeah, I mean, college football Saturday is going to be great. We want to get Thor's takes, and also Syracuse in action tomorrow night, so we'll get a quick thought from Thor on that tomorrow. So a lot to get to tomorrow. Shots coming up here in the Sports Bar Danger. We've got Yankees. We've got Mets. Lions fans aren't harassing Dan Campbell already, are they? This is actually kind of disturbing out of Detroit. Or is it? We'll get into that. Another story, too. Sunday Night Football has the Chiefs heading down to Atlanta. And like many teams, Atlanta will have their annual Hall of Fame. They call it the Ring of Honor. You're not going to believe who's going in their Ring of Honor coming up.
Oh, I think I already saw this. I know who's going.
Okay, if you're not familiar, it deserves an eye roll here.
All right, we'll get to that and more next. It's time for a round of shots. And don't forget about Last Call, where you can have the final say in the sports bar. That's coming up before 6 o'clock as well. Get your calls in now at 585-866-4FAN, 866-4326.
Sports Update.
On the Bills Thursday injury report, Dewan Smoot, Javon Solomon, and Casey Toohill were all limited. Ty Johnson, Quentin Morris, both practicing fully. Josh Allen knows the history of the Bills-Jaguars isn't great.
You know, the last couple times we've played them, they've gotten the best of us. So taking that to account, obviously new D coordinator there, but they're flying around. They're playing real solid together. Defense, got guys with a lot of motor, and they don't let up. So we're going to have our hands full.
Week 3 of the NFL season begins tonight. It's the Patriots at the Jets. On the Major League scoreboard, Shohei Ohtani was steal number 50 on the season. Dodgers leading the Marlins 3-1. They're in the third. Finals from today. The Orioles get a walk-off homer from Santander, 5-3 over the Giants. Braves big over the Reds, 15-3 in 10. The Guardians over the Twins, 3-2. Yankees trailing in Seattle, 3-2 in the fourth. Gene Battaglia in the sports leader, the Fan, Rochester.
The only way to take the Fan Rochester with you is the free Odyssey app. Download it today and follow the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
I know this was debated this morning on Maggie and Perloff, Gino. Where do you come down on clubhouse celebrations in Major League Baseball?
It comes up every year. It's an evergreen topic because there are the Yankees or whoever. Hey, we clinched a playoff berth. Yay, yay. Splash, splash, splish, splash. I mean, to me, it's a Francesa. This is big deal. Win something first.
Oh, who cares?
I'm saying this, and I feel like I'm the old man here where you celebrate along the way, but I compare it to the NFL where, okay, you're the Buffalo Bills. You made the playoffs for the first time in 17 years. Woo, wah, you're crazy and everything. Now, you've been there before. Now, okay, there's the hat. Big deal. Like, if the Bills make the Super Bowl, okay. It's not the championship, but that's when you get to a spot you've never been before. For the Yankees, danger. 59 times they've been in the postseason, including this coming fall. They beat Seattle last night, 2-1 in 10 innings. Seattle, another base running mistake. Go back to the drawing board there. The Yankees getting 6 shutout innings from Nestor Cortes. As we mentioned in the update, 3-2. The Yankees currently trailing. Jazz Chisholm, I didn't realize he's up to 23 homers on the season. What a pickup that's been for the Yankees. Yep. Certainly, good player that, could be a core guy for years to come. Next task for New York, that is actually to wrap up the division. The Yankees right now up 4.5 on the fading Orioles, although the Orioles pulled one out against the Giants today. After today's game, the Bombers head to Oakland.
Feels like a win.
The Mets have a 71% chance to make the postseason.
So you're saying there's a chance?
The Mets have a 71% chance, Mike Danger. Okay? The Mosquitoes are gone. I can go sit down on my deck, okay? This after the sweep of the Nationals.
This is going to be terrible. This is so bad for the sports bar. This is bad for our juju, our karma, our listeners, our regulars. Gene, they're going to have to deal with you being insufferable if they're in the postseason?
No, it's just called New York arrogance, Danger. This is this is where every fan base wants to be if you're not there.
We need something to counterbalance it because it's going to be too much. Maybe we'll have Catalana on every day just to kind of keep things equal.
Well, it's still a little bit of work to do. Comes a test this week. 4-game series at home tonight against Philadelphia. Luis Severino taking the mound against the former Met, Taijuan Walker. 7:15 the first pitch on Fox.
All right, so we're dividing and conquering. You're going to go ahead and watch your Mets. I'll bite the bullet and I'll watch Week 3 get underway on Prime with Thursday Night Football.
What's more likely? Jets offense looks competent, or the storyline tomorrow? Oh my gosh, Aaron Rodgers couldn't get it done, and he looks old. And look, it's a short week for any team that's tough, especially for a 40-year-old quarterback.
I like the under. Let's just put it that way.
Lions head coach Dan Campbell is moving, not to another team. He's just moving his home, bought another home, sold it. That's never fun, right? And why would you do this during the middle of football season? Well, Fox 2 in Detroit reporting that Campbell's home address was leaked to the public, and he and his family have become the victim of pranks and harassment after tough Lions losses, including the NFC Championship game. The Campbell family has filed police reports.
Yeah, that's low class. I hate hearing that. And, well, I mean,
it's not a Detroit thing.
That's an everything thing.
There was a game, Monday Night Football, 15 years ago, the Bills opening up in New England. Do you remember Leotis McKelvin? Leo's McKelvin. The Bills have a lead against the Patriots, and the McKelvin fumbles a kickoff, and it results in a quick Patriot touchdown. The Patriots scored something like 17 points and took the game over in the fourth quarter. And I remember McKelvin's house being vandalized. I'm like, wait a second, we got to be better than that.
Dude, it's not just pro sports. I mean, Section 5 coaches, I'm sure, have had to deal with this crap. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's irresponsible. It's low class. I mean, tell me that all you have in your life is football by vandalizing the home and the property of the guy who coaches the team you root for. It's ridiculous. I just can't get my mind to the space where somebody thinks that that's a good idea. It drives me crazy.
Yeah, I would think that in a fishbowl town like Buffalo, too, like you're going home, like do people know where McDermott lives? I would hope not.
I promise you people know where McDermott lives. People know where Josh Allen lives. Hell, I saw something cross my feed where they were showcasing Josh Allen's home, his mansion. It's secluded. It's in the middle of 15 acres of property, but like I'm sure you could find it in Orchard Park if you're from Buffalo, you probably have an idea of where that house is. So I don't like that information is as readily available as it is, but I like even less the fact that some a-hole is going to go out of their way to try and inconvenience them, ruin their life in some way. It's somebody's home. Have some respect. It's just horrible.
Also, Dan Campbell has helped turn this ship around. He put together a great staff. Granted, they made some great draft picks on offense in particular, but you haven't been anywhere, so be grateful. I'm sure it's just a few, and it's like the Apple cliche, just one makes a batch bad or whatever it is. Sunday Night Football features the Chiefs and Falcons in Atlanta, where at halftime the Falcons will induct the newest member of their Ring of Honor, owner Arthur Blank. Danger, let's just pause here. Did Blank insist on this, or did the Ring of Fame committee just repeatedly insist, no, I can't. No, all right, I'll accept and go in.
Right.
I mean, well, at least the fans are going to feel good about this, and maybe Blank realizes maybe this isn't such a good look. When do you ever hear this? Blank will be giving all fans 2 free hot dogs in this game, 2 bags of chips, and unlimited soda with the souvenir cup. In preparation for this game, 100,000 hot dogs have been ordered.
Well, that's fantastic.
There's no way. Like, you say 2, like, legitimately, everybody will get their 2 free hot dogs and then probably some more.
Yeah, likely. I don't know, man. I think to myself, I'm jaded. I'm cynical. Whenever I hear of somebody winning an award or something, hey, this is award winning, it's like, okay, but was an award that you won based on the actual service, the actual job, the actual thing that you've done, or is it what we're describing here? Just a bunch of people saying, we have to do this. Like, you have to do this because I'm the owner of the team. I've been the owner of the team for some time now.
It wasn't until a few years ago that I actually found this out. People might not know this. Probably most people know this. You can buy a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Yeah, it's a promotion vehicle. It's
Are
the
you
same
kidding me?
I think it's the same thing with all the Hollywood award shows. It's like they have to nominate themselves. It's not like, well, okay, what is it? The Oscars is the Foreign Press, Hollywood Foreign Press. They make the nominations or they give out the awards.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure how it all works, but I can tell you in our industry, when you hear that a show or a radio station or whatever is award-winning or they've won this prestigious award, chances are they had to nominate themselves to be considered for nomination. It wasn't because somebody within the industry said, you know what, they do a really good job. They deserve that award. So what are we talking about here? It feels very blowhardy to me.
So we should just call ourselves the award-winning sports bar.
We're just going to start nominating ourselves. We're gonna make submissions to the New York State Broadcasters Association. I'm going to do my best Saul Rosenberg impersonation. Gene will be baseball writer. We're going to submit our work to the New York State Broadcasters Association. We'll be nominated, and we'll win some a crystal bowl or something like that.
Frontier Field Walk of Fame. I'm nominating myself.
We can't even get a bobblehead from the Red Wings. We're going to win a prestigious award? Get out of here.
Yeah.
Maybe we just need to start campaigning for ourselves a little bit harder, Gene. We'll campaign for ourselves, and we will eventually be the award-winning sports bar.
Sports
with
bar.
Danger and Battaglia.
Yeah. Like, I would think the Red Wings want to sell tickets.
Arthur Blank. He probably did. He probably was like, okay, not for nothing, but I don't have any more time. I don't have much more time left on this earth. I've been the owner of this team. We've never won a Super Bowl. In fact, we lost one in historic fashion.
No. Like if you're a billionaire and you don't have much time on earth, you may even give away your wealth. You're still going to get criticism.
Oh yeah, no question.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, billionaires shouldn't exist, didn't you know? Billionaires should be bad.
I can't believe like you didn't give it to here. Oh,
yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah. So so that's Sunday night. We'll look out for that. And everybody there, enjoy your hot dogs, your unlimited soda, and your pre-diabetes afterwards. My God.
This should not be a surprise. Maybe you're going to need at least they gave us the free food and the Chiefs do a number on you. This should not be a surprise. After 17 seasons in the NHL, Kyle Oposo announced his retirement today. He was the number 7 overall pick in 2006. By the Islanders. Oposo played in only 6 regular season games with the Florida Panthers, but that's where he may be remembered for because the former Sabre team captain was the second Panther to touch the Stanley Cup after they won it in Game 7. Oh, by the way, Danger, we are now 49 hours away from our first Sabre preseason.
Where do you come down on Oposo?
Kind of just a guy. I mean, 17 years in the league.
Yeah. I mean, the longevity of a 17-year career, I think, is worthy of a thumbs up and a wink. But, I'm saying Oposo.
Here's where I come down. Good player, longevity.
Teammates love him.
Symbol of the drought.
Yeah.
The Sabres overpaid for him. You didn't move off of him because either you overvalued him or no other team wanted him.
I don't know that he made the Sabres better. That's my criticism. If I have a criticism of Oposo, he was brought here young and with the intention of making the team better and making those around him better, and it just never happened. He's a good dude.
Yeah,
but
as a team captain, we're going to assess blame from last year when he's out there taking the bullets oh, that's good, Kyle Oposo. No, he should have been ripping people's heads off. And I don't have a problem with the captain that actually goes in front of the media and starts calling some guys out. So
yeah, I think
I don't know.
I think if you're the team captain and you see one of your star players get boarded, and there's not really a reaction to it, I mean, you have to take matters in your own hand. I'm so lukewarm on this guy because of what you mentioned, the fact that he kind of represents the drought-era Sabres. I'm kind of enjoy retirement. Congratulations on your fraudulent cup. You deserve it after 17 years, and that's all good, but I don't have a good taste in my mouth with Kyle Oposo.
We were wondering, he was not good for Florida. And were the Panthers actually going to just try to do a solid just to dress him in Game 7 after missing games in this series? No, they dressed him, and it all worked out. Finally, there are rumors that there is a New York Giant quarterback dating host Kay Adams from the Up and Adams show.
Really?
No, Danger. It's not Tommy Cutlets.
It isn't?
Nah, he's too good for her.
Well, of course he's too good for her, Chino, because he's Italian.
Adams and Daniel Jones are rumored to have a thing, but Adams today says
hold on a second. What?
That is absolutely not true. I'm not dating Daniel Jones. Breaking news. I met him all of 2 times. We wish him the best. I'm pretty sure he has a girlfriend. It was during camp that Adams fumbled her words around Jones, and there's been some other things that link the two together.
Okay, so we don't know, and she's come out and said, I'm not dating him. We've met 2 times.
Well, couple things here. One, if it's a total internet thing like a rumor, why are you addressing a rumor? Don't even go there. But you're inserting yourself into the story maybe to pump up your show, and then it's the old Rory with what's her name. You don't really want to be dating your
Amanda
subjects.
Balloonis.
Amanda the homewrecker, we call her.
Homewrecker Amanda.
Homewrecker Amanda.
Yeah. I tell you what. I'm not going to say that it's not true. She can come out and deny it all she wants, but I'm not going to say that it's not true. If you met him a couple of times and he has a girlfriend, do you think that's going to stop any NFL player if he really wants to get with a Kay Adams or anybody he wants? It's not going to.
The answer is no.
The answer is no.
Or it would have to be girlfriend. There's other arrangements that can be made, right?
I mean, we hear stories. We're not going to mention anybody specifically, but we hear stories that guys know, and the wives and girlfriends know We're going to go away now. The boys need to be boys. And when the boys need to be boys, you let the boys be boys. What do you think happens?
They live a lifestyle, some, not all, but some, that we just can't wrap our heads around.
That's right. And maybe Daniel Jones is part of that with the Giants.
No, but that's the funny part. Like, if you had to say, give me the most drippiest guy in the league, it's Daniel Jones, both with his demeanor, with the way he speaks, the way he plays. He's Daniel Jones.
Yeah. Oh, man, the Giants. I feel pretty good about my bold prediction that they could be the worst team in the league this year. Yeah. I know Carolina looks really, really bad. They actually made a good move. They said, we're going to bench the quarterback and put in Dalton. They could actually win some games now with Dalton in there. I just don't think there's any hope for the Giants. I think that's going to be tough for the rest of the season.
Did you tell me Jeff from Three Heads reached out to you?
He did.
No, he didn't reach out to me.
No, I'm
like
your secretary. I'm the vehicle to pass along messages. Yeah, he sent me a message on the secret text. So this is from yesterday, and we were talking about how there weren't a lot of Raider fans at Allegiant Stadium. That Allegiant Stadium is usually like 40% visiting fan base, 30%
right.
visiting fan base. Gino better watch himself with this Raiders take, and there are a ton of Raider fans there, and that's from somebody who's been to Allegiant Stadium for a game for his beloved Raiders.
Okay, maybe I should not say anything.
The Minister of Mayhem, yeah. Tomorrow on the show, we kick off your sports weekend with Andy Behrens. Talk some fantasy football. Andy Behrens from Yahoo Fantasy. His normal Friday afternoon time. He'll join us at 3:25. And we'll talk college football and the 2-0 Minnesota Vikings with our superhero of the spread, Thor Nystrom, the Fantasy Life, at 4:25. He's going to stop by, and we'll get a preview of this weekend's action from Thor as well. If you missed Mia O'Brien from 1010XL, or Dan Fates of 13 Wham Sports and BuffaloPlus.com. You can find those conversations wherever you get your podcasts. Search out the Sports Bar, and that includes Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and, of course, our home, the free-to-download Odyssey app. That's AUDACY. Special thanks to everybody who checked out the video stream on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester and on Twitch at The Fan Rochester as well. Like and subscribe there. JR Sport Brief next on The Fan Rochester.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on 95.7 FM.